Hey guys. This is part 23 of What If Naruto Was Sealed and Woke Up After 2,000 Years. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 56. These are not the aliens you're looking. Location, the Normandy. Alright, Joker, Naruto said as he entered the conference room. I'm here. Patching the elusive man through now, his pilot replied. The table went down to the ground and the room darkened. It lightened with the brightness of that familiar star. The elusive man wasn't sitting down this time. He was standing up and in the middle of lighting a cigarette. Uzumaki, he said in greeting, we caught a break. I intercepted a distress call from a Turian patrol. They stumbled onto a collector ship beyond the coreless system. The Turians were wiped out, but not before they crippled the collector vessel. And? Asked Naruto. He made his way back to his chair and sat down. It was almost like he couldn't give orders out without sitting in it. I need you to board that ship and get some hard data on the collectors. Find us a way to get to their homeworld. Now that was something he could get behind and do. But ever since he saw that video in the Shadow Broker's lair, Naruto had lost what little, if any at all, trust he had in the elusive man. And you're sure that we're not going to be walking into a trap here? If he was one to scowl, the elusive man would have done so in that moment. Information is my weapon, Commander. It's good. What about the Turians? Aren't they going to send someone out to investigate? They will. Eventually, he amended. But I intercepted the transmissions. In the meantime, we're feeding them false reports. You're close enough that you can be in and out before the Turians learn the truth. Of course I am, the blonde thought to himself. How was a Turian patrol was able to take out a collector ship when they were able to tear through the first Normandy with ease? Reports indicate the hull's intact, but all systems seem to be offline. They could be making repairs as we speak. I'm not saying it won't be dangerous, but we can't let an opportunity like this slip by. Alright, send Joker the coordinates, and I'll have him go there. Already sent, the elusive man said back. He took a moment to smoke his cigarette. Once you're aboard the ship, establish a link with EDI. She'll mine their data for information regarding the Omega-4 relay. Good luck, Uzumaki. With that said, Naruto found himself back in the conference room. Joker, he called out as he turned back to the door. Coordinates already punched in, his pilot said before he could. Let's go find us a collector ship. Don't make this sound like a trip to the grocery store, Joker. How long until we get there anyway? He asked. I'd say about a day. She was so close, so close. Her back was arched, and it felt she could hardly breathe. She was so close. She needed that release. But it was held from her, almost cruelly. Would you? She tried to gasp out, unable to finish due to the sheer pleasure sending waves through her body. Tell me what you want. How can I? It was all she could do to hold on to her sanity right now. Her mouth moved but no words came out. Come on. Tell me. I won't finish until you do. Oh, you cruel little. Another wave shot through her, flooding her senses and making her numb to everything else. But it ended too soon. It wasn't enough, she needed more. She was so close. Please, she forced the word out. Tell me what you want. I want. She was losing her mind. It was tearing her apart from the pleasure. I want you to finish it off. She didn't hear a reply, but the fingers and that tongue, oh God, that tongue, made short work of her. The peak hit, making her claw at the sheets and satisfaction groan out from her mouth. But that groan was smothered by the mouth pressing into hers. It was warm but rough. She returned it just as rough, enjoying the fight. When the peak passed and the waves faded away, she fell back against the sheets. She was tired but in the good way. A second after she hit the sheets, someone else fell down next to her. Happy? Ruko asked with a satisfied smirk on her face. Yes, I am, Miranda replied, catching her in another kiss. When they broke it, the blonde smirk had gotten wider. Guess I do good work then. Her fingers began to trace their way across her lover's skin, touching and gliding lightly like it was something to be discovered. To Miranda, the feeling of Ruko's fingers against her sweat-flushed skin was like slivers of ice being trailed along fire. It also felt incredible, and she didn't want to stop. She let her gaze wander around the room. Never thought I would be here, she mused. What? Having amazing sex in the bowls of a ship or having amazing sex with someone like me? Ruko asked, pausing slightly in her tracing. Recently they'd been screwing more down here than in her office. Even without a door locking them in, the blonde felt things were more private here. She looked down at the fingers paused over her hip. Did I say you could stop doing that? Her blonde just grinned. Never said I couldn't, she replied cheekily. Miranda looked at her. Once, she had thought that the tattoos that covered her body were an eyesore. But now, they gave her a sense of primal power. It was like she was an ancient goddess of the Fianna clans that strode the battlefield with no regard to the blood that would stain her. Seeing that body, even thinking about it, made Miranda consider the many things she could do to ravish it. Her cheek and sarcastic attitude had once driven her up a wall, but now she was relieved to hear it daily. Ruko looked back at her and laughed a little. You're doing it again, she said. Her fingers began their tantalizing dance while she laid her head down into the crook of Miranda's neck. It was a comfortable place to rest her head, and it smelled like her. Doing what? Miranda asked, her fingers instinctively reaching up to play through those blonde locks. Giving me an eyeful. I thought you enjoyed it when I gave you an eyeful. She chuckled. Of course I do. It shows you've got fucking taste. I know. She fell silent and looked again around the room. It was true, what Ruko had said. She never thought she would find herself in a place like this and wanting to stay. She understood the need of having an underbelly to most things, but she had never considering staying there any longer than she had to. But now, she didn't want to leave the bed to go back above decks. The only downside was if she wanted a shower, she would have to go up to the crew deck. And she really couldn't go there after she had just been ravished like this, not since that crewmate had caught her pinning Ruko to the wall and attacking her throat. Ruko didn't make it any better when she asked if she wanted to join. If people hadn't known before, they knew then. But as she thought about Ruko and her antics, a somber thought came to her. It concerned what came after the mission was done. She wasn't an idealist. She knew that things would change when everything was said and done. She had read the reports on Liara Tsoni and Maya Clayton, how they went their separate ways after the Normandy was destroyed. The same thing could happen to her and Ruko, and if she was completely honest, the prospect scared her a little. Ruko? She said. Replied her lover. She sounded like she was dozing off. Can we talk? She lifted her head slightly up. About what? She asked. Us, she gestured at the bed and them, this. What's going on here? What? You're getting bored already? There was an annoyed tone to her voice, but underneath there was anger and a hint of fear. No, I'm not. But we have to consider what will come after the mission is done. What do you mean, cheerleader? She looked her lover in the eye. When it's all done, would you consider coming with me to the Akatsuki? It was a stretch, she knew it. But it made sense to her. If Ruko came with her, she would be relatively safe, because she knew that her lover would not accept staying on the sidelines, and they would be together. But Ruko shot up, her fingers leaving her body. Are you fucking nuts? She demanded in a voice that was beginning to roar. You know what they've done to me, you've seen it. And you want me to go back there? I didn't think you would, Miranda told her, trying to sound comforting. She sat up and reached for her shoulder, only to have it jerked away from her. It was a small move, only an inch, but it was plain that Ruko didn't want to be touched by her. I don't see any other way for us to stay together. Do you? Yeah, I do actually, she replied, her back still turned to her. You could leave. She didn't say what? Because she understood what Ruko was saying. But even then, the idea seemed ludicrous. I can't leave, she finally said. Why? You know why, Ruko. The elusive man wouldn't let me leave. He would send people after me. He would send people after you to get me. He would also tell my father where I am. It wouldn't be safe. It's never safe. Miranda knew that. She was a practical person. But she found herself not wanting to lose what she had with this woman. I can't leave, Ruko. They wouldn't leave me be. Fuck them, she snapped shortly. Ruko, the blonde, whirled around and slammed into her. She was pushed back down to the bed, pinned by the shoulders. Ruko loomed above her, eyes burning bright and a snarl tightening her lips. Fuck them, she growled lowly. Fuck Akatsuki. Fuck the elusive man, fuck your father. You are mine, Miranda. I ain't going to let you go anywhere. They can't have you. She leaned down and caught her in a kiss that was as searing as it was possessive. Miranda returned it, taking the heat and sharing it. She knew that beneath the vision of the angry war goddess above her, there was a woman that was just as scared as her. It was a woman that was scared of losing the one she loved after just getting her. She felt the same way. I'd become such a sap, she couldn't help but think cynically of herself. But she found that it didn't matter. The kiss became more heated, hungrier. She felt Ruko's hips start to move against hers and she responded. She could feel the need thrumming through her war goddess body. She wanted more than just sex now. She wanted to feel the connection between them. She wanted to be reassured that Miranda wouldn't leave her. She wouldn't. She couldn't. She would stay with this primal goddess. She would stay with her, love her, and be with her. She reached out and pulled her closer, wanting to feel the heat of her skin against hers. She realized something else. She said my name? That simple fact made her heart skip a beat, and she loved the blonde all the more for it. Gurus eyed the food on his tray with a suspicious eye. It wasn't the fact that the chef was a human. Although he was aware of what the crew said about him. It was just a natural suspicion he had whenever he was aboard a ship where both dextro and amino foods were served together. He was always afraid that the stuff would get mixed somehow, and he died because of his food. It was a bad way to go, simply because it was embarrassing. He sat down at the mess table. While he ate, someone else sat down on the opposite side. He looked up briefly. Quan Misli, he said to the hunter. Gurus, she replied. She ate in such a way that almost seemed machine-like. If she was any stiller, she could have passed for a machine itself. You finally managed to pull yourself away from the gun. He nodded. Calibrations are important. You know that. Not that many calibrations. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought that you were hiding. Hiding from what? She shrugged her shoulders. I don't know. I don't know you that well. That's not my fault, he pointed out to her, jabbing the air with his fork. She barely gave the fork a notice. She was more focused on eating. And it's not my concern. They fell into a silence while they ate. As the time passed, they took notice at the fact that no one was sitting down at the mess table alongside with them. It wasn't a big concern. The crew had their assorted jobs to do, and the rest of the team was off doing their own thing. Gurus knew that Eric and Musashi would probably be training down in the cargo bay. Zaid was in his area of the ship, Thane was mediating, and he wasn't sure but Grunt might be down in the bay area training too. The only hope if that was the case was that he didn't destroy everything. He finished his food and was about to stand up when Quan Misli said, Gurus, can we talk? The Turian paused in his movement and looked at her. What's wrong? Is it about the fact that we were eating alone? She scoffed. No one wonders about that. It's a no-brainer. And why's that? It was a stupid question because he already knew the answer. But he wanted to see what her answer would be. She looked up at him. Are you serious? Have you been stuck with the guns that long? You don't why people don't sit with us? He knew that she wasn't being rude about it from the lack of venom in her words. I know why. I just want to hear what you think it is. If she was a less professional person, the hunter would have rolled her eyes at him. Instead, she finished off her meal and looked at him. He would have been surprised if he had seen a daring look in them. But he only saw a calm that only came from years of experience, and he wasn't surprised. All right, you first, she said. It's because everyone has a job to do and they've got to do it. They will be able to eat when they have the chance. That chance doesn't really coincide with the times of us eating. It made perfect sense to him. But she just chuckled. You're the exact definition of a Turian, Gurus. He didn't expect that kind of answer. Also, he was a little bit insulted. He was not the exact definition of a Turian. If he was, he would still be in CCC and doing his father proud. He never would have ended up on Omega. Then what do you think the case is? They don't sit with us because they don't think that they're worthy, she explained. We're the team that follows Naruto Uzumaki into battle, the Normandy clan. To them, that puts us on a level they don't think they'll reach at the rank they're at right now. We probably have to invite them to sit down with us to get them to stick around. He hadn't thought about it like that. It made sense, but it was also rather ridiculous in his eyes. Besides, there was something else. I could have sworn that the crew was perfectly fine eating while the commander was amongst them. Would you run away at the first chance when a Turian legend and possibly one of your own heroes sat down beside you? It didn't take him a second to come up with a reply. No, I wouldn't. My case is rested. But that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. Oh right, he had gotten distracted. So, what did you want to talk about? She lost the small amusement that was on her face. She became serious and grim too. Do you blame me for what happened on Vermeer? With Caden? She asked. Gurus didn't answer right away like he had before. He hadn't been expecting that question. He thought he was going to get a question regarding the team or weapons, not what happened then. Why do you ask me that? He asked her. Is it because of what's going on between you and Naruto? Yes. I know that relationship might be getting better, but it's not back to where it was before. But I've also never given any thought to what the others might have thought about it. She looked at him expectantly. He thought about his own situation with Sidoni's. The exact details might not have been the same, but the complete view of it might as well be the same. He and Naruto were in the same position here. He wondered if the shinobi had been thinking about the hunter in front of him when giving that lecture. He had mourned Quan Misli and Caden when he thought that they had died. He was also surprised that Quan Misli was alive and had rejoiced momentarily at the fact. But the fact remained that Caden was dead. Did you kill him? He finally asked her. You mean directly? Yes. She shook her head. No, I didn't. That was someone else. It was Kylum. And she hoped that she would be the one that would get her hands on him. Then I don't blame you. You didn't pull the trigger. You're not responsible. The grimness faded away. Instead, there was a slight look of gratitude. Thank you? Attention team, Naruto's voice came onto the intercom. We are an hour away from the target. Whatever you're doing, finish and armor up. Everyone's going into this one. Thank you, that is all. Both the hunter and the Turian were already moving before the intercom went dead. Did you think that everyone heard that? Gurus asked her. I'm sure they did, she replied. That's why the intercoms go into the belly of the ship too. It was truly no secret what Ruko and Miranda did when they both vanished below decks. It was also why no one really dared to go down there to get them. The one crewman who once went down to get them ran back up, wanting protection for his life and his balls. He never said which one made the threat. As Naruto walked into the cockpit, Joker looked back at him. We have a visual on the collector's ship, Commander, he said. The shinobi didn't say anything back. He looked out the windows at the ship. It looked a lot like a ship had merged with an asteroid and the asteroid had won the merger. It was more long than wide or tall. Very low emissions, EDI told him. Passive infrared temperature suggests most systems are offline. Thrusters are cold. Just like the elusive man said it would be, he thought to himself. Joker looked out the window at the ship himself. That thing is massive, he said with an odd voice. How did the Turians take it out? He didn't know and he wasn't going to guess. Joker, did you see anything like this when the first Normandy was destroyed? He asked his pilot. No. He would have that he had. He was the one who had gotten pushed into the escape pod and away to safety. Not even a little bit? You'll have to forgive me for not looking. You see, the escape pods came in such a fashion that the window, if there were any, would be in the front of the pod. If I had such a pod, I would have only been able to see where I was flying, not what was behind me. Naruto knew that he had hit something of a button there. All right, got it, he said, backing off from the topic. It wasn't a pleasant memory for him. It might be the same with Joker. As the ship got closer, EDI kept speaking. Radar scans do not detect any hull breaches on the side facing us. I detect no mass effect distortions. It appears the drive core is offline. I hope that's a good thing, Naruto said, mostly to himself. You're about to find out, Commander, Joker told him. Rendezvous in 30 seconds. Good luck. He didn't say anything in return as he walked out of the cockpit. The team took the shuttle into the ship. When the hatch opened and they stepped off, Naruto had to revise what he thought about the ship. As he got a closer look at what he thought was the asteroid, he quickly saw that it was organic instead. He could hear the organic structure moving in place, something he had only heard when he had been in Shino's house. I love what they've done with the place, Gurus said glibly. But even as he said it, he still had his sniper rifle out and at the ready. Miranda did a quick look around as she took a couple of steps inwards. Looks like a giant insect hive, she remarked. There's nothing like about it, Zaid replied, casting an uneasy look around. There was something in his gut that was telling to walk very carefully. Penetrating scans have detected an access node to uplink with collector databanks, EDI told Naruto through the COM marking location to your Harsuit computer. Alright, time to play the game, he declared, keeping his war hawks at the ready. Move in. Grunt stepped up beside him as he moved in, holding a very large assault rifle. As they moved forward, they saw no one else. They didn't even see bodies. It was an uncertainty that made them alert and nervous. This place is not right, Thane declared from the back alongside Geras. I think that goes without saying at this point, Jacob told him. Eric shook his head. No, he is right. There is something wrong with this ship. He kept his hands ready at a shotgun that was almost as big as him. The mortar wouldn't do any good in such confined quarters, and he didn't know what he would be able to cleave through with his axe in here. Commander, EDI spoke into Naruto's comm. I have compared the ship's EM signature to known collector profiles. It is the vessel that was at Horizon. He frowned inside his own helmet. Wait, that can't be right. I saw that ship get destroyed. We all did. But Miranda gave it a moment's thought, and came to a different conclusion. It's possible that we didn't, Commander. But I saw the ship get hit and explode. The debris was already beginning to fall. I saw the ship get struck too, she agreed. But I didn't see it fall because Quan Misley had been wounded by the grenade. All of our attention was focused on her. It was true, but he was going to be stubborn on this. If something's hit and it explodes, that usually means that it's destroyed. Geras spoke. I think that when your definition doesn't take into account shields. This ship probably had shields. They must have been taken out when it was hit, and that was what made it easier for the Turian patrol. He considered the words and they sounded true. It was even truer when he considered who it was that had fired that shot. But now wasn't the time to focus on that part. Alright, fine, he conceded. Let's keep it moving. Watch out for the collectors. They didn't see any collectors as they went forward. But they did find something else instead. It was a couple of pods lying against the wall. They were opened and actual smoke was rising from the pod. What the hell is this? Grunt asked, marching up to one of them and nudging it with his gun. With his immense strength, the pod moved only just. It's a pod, Zaid said. I can see that. Then why ask the question? The Krogan chose to growl warningly for his answer. The merc ignored it. These must be containers the collectors used to take away humans, Miranda said, taking in the sight of it. Morden activated his Omni tool and went over the less observed pod. Strong metallic structure. Length, width, and height perfectly suited for average human form. Can also be adjusted for outliers. Ruko gave the Solarian a look of worry. What does that mean? He was too busy focusing on the pod to answer her. She waited for another couple of seconds, and he still didn't answer her. She was about to walk over and demand an answer when Kasumi spoke. I'd bet that he's talking about people who are shorter, taller, or fatter than the average human form. Yes, Morden agreed without looking up from his Omni tool. It's horrible in any case, Geras said, looking down at the pods with a sick feeling in his stomach. Trapped in those pods. Completely at the mercy of the collectors. He couldn't imagine living in that pod. He would always feel a little ashamed of what came to his mind next afterwards, but at that moment he was glad that he wasn't a human. They all heard the faint cry of an animal off in the distance, too far for them to be worried about it. We need to keep moving, Naruto told the team, turning away from the pods. But keep an eye out for any human survivors. They followed him away from the pods, but they couldn't help but think about them. It got worse. As they followed the path, they saw a pile of bodies in front of them. This looks bad, Geras said as soon as he saw the pile. He didn't need to look closely to know that they were human. No shit, Geras, Ruko said. Her words were gruff, but she was looking at the pile the same as him. She was glad that she didn't have anything to eat before getting off the shuttle. Otherwise it was probably liable to come crawling back up her stomach at that moment. As they got closer, they saw the bodies weren't bodies alone. They were being covered over by the organic material that covered the ship. It was a slow process. The bodies on the top were still showing while the ones underneath them were gone from sight. The smell of it all hit the team, and even with the filters in their helmets, it was a repugnant smell. I think I'm going to be sick, Jacob said. No one would have blamed him. Miranda looked past the smell and focused on the pile. Why would the collectors leave a pile of bodies around? She asked. Must have been used for testing, Geras offered. Morden nodded agreement. Plausible scenario. The Turian didn't want to be right about that. It was sickening. I guess these are the subjects are the ones who didn't pass. Naruto stared long and hard at the bodies. They had to be pulled out and be treated with respect. But there wasn't time for it. As much as he hated to admit to it, much less think about it, they would have to leave the bodies. But there was a chance that others were alive. If that was the case, they needed to be found. We have to keep moving, he told them all, turning away from the pile and towards the path. It led into a corridor that seemed to be more ship than organic hive. That's all you have to say about this? Musashi asked him. He was a little angry that the shinobi would dismiss them so casually. It wasn't right. There is nothing we can do about them. But we can do something about any survivors if we find them, he said back. Focus on that. Yes, sir. He would focus on it, but he didn't have to like it. If they ran into the collectors, the Bakken would be getting used. The passage led them to something that looked like a medical bay to Naruto. As they approached, they all saw collectors lying on tables that were attached to monitors and computers. It was odd and a little bit disturbing, but Naruto chose to ignore it in favor of the computers. Joker, you and EDI still there? He asked through the comm. Right here, Commander, Joker replied. I'm at a computer. What do you need me to do? Despite the situation they were in, Joker couldn't help but say his next words with exasperation. Commander, don't you know to work your Omni tool already? Not now, Joker. Just tell me what to do. All right, listen carefully. While he listened to Joker's instructions, the others had their attention drawn to the collector on the table. It is dead, right? Kasumi asked, looking at it uncertainly. Looks like it to me, Zaid said. Morden looked a little closer than the others. Yes. Definitely dead. Well, that's a relief, Musashi said. Eric looked about as relieved as he was. By which he meant not at all. The question now is, why is it on the slab in the first place? Maybe they were trying to heal it, Naruto said absent-mindedly, still focused on following Joker's orders. Ruko looked his way. Heal it? She asked in complete disbelief. Yeah, this place looks like a med bay. She looked around the place and shook her head in a disagreement. This is not a medical bay. All right, what does it look like to you? The science bay, she answered. Other members of the team nodded with her declaration. It made him stop what he was doing and looked around the place. It did actually look more like a science area instead of a medical one. He associated it with a medical bay probably because he had been in the hospital too many times. Hey, Commander, you paying attention? Asked Joker. He brought his attention back to the Omni tool. Yeah, sorry, he said back. What's next? He followed the instructions and sent the end result into the computer. Alright, EDI, I've uploading the stuff from the computer. Do your thing. Data received. Analyzing, she replied. While she went through the data, Naruto joined the others at the table. He looked at the collector. It was a creepy-looking creature. It looked like it was an insect that had gotten onto two legs and started walking. Even when it was dead, its eyes still managed to somehow hold that angry madness he had seen on Horizon. It was unnerving and he forced himself to look away. You alright? Asked Kasumi, noticing his move. Yeah, just a little put off by that thing. She looked at it and shuddered a little. Can't say I blame you, she replied. They're just as freaky dead as they are alive. Commander, EDI's got something, Joker announced. Go ahead, the blonde told the AI. She didn't waste any time beginning her explanation. The collectors were running baseline genetic comparisons between their species and humanity. They were comparison? Ruko repeated, sounded as horrified as she was disgusted. Why would they do something like that? I have no hypothesis on their motivations. All I have are the preliminary results. They reveal something remarkable. EDI, said Naruto, when you use the word remarkable, is it in the sense of it being something we could use against them or something that is going to make us even more horrified of them? It always seemed like it came down to those two choices in these kinds of situations. I will leave that to you, Commander. Already he was getting a bad feeling about what they were going to hear next. What is it? It's a quad-strand genetic structure, identical to traces collected from ancient ruins. Only one race is known to have this structure, the Protheans. When he heard those words and he looked at the corpse of the collector, it all came to him in a blinding rush. Sweet merciful Kami, he breathed out. The Reapers didn't wipe out the Protheans. They just turned them into their slaves. These are no longer Protheans, Commander. Their genes showed distinct signs of extensive genetic rewrite. The Reapers have repurposed them to suit their needs. Say what now? Ruko asked. She wouldn't have put it so bluntly, but Miranda agreed with the sentiment. That's impossible. It is not. The data does not lie. Anyone get the feeling that Liara should be here right now? Gurus asked. The Asari would probably throw a fit at the proclamation or pore over every detail to make sure that it was correct. Grunt didn't care if Liara was supposed to be there or not. If she wasn't there, she didn't matter. He was more focused on the important question. Why the hell has no one figured this out? Aren't there pictures of the Protheans? They are, Jacob said. Now that he thought about it, it actually made sense. Why hadn't they compared the two? Edi had the answer. No one has had an opportunity to study a collector genetic code in this detail. What about visually? Asked Musashi. Zaid snorted derisively. Do you really think someone is going to walk up to a collector and ask them to hold still so they can compare them to a picture of a Prothean? The general opinion was if you see a collector and you are a human, you fucking run. He has you there, Eric told his friend. Edi continued talking. I have already matched 2,000 alleles to recorded fragments. This collector likely descends from a colony in the Styx Theta cluster. But there are signs of extreme alteration. 3 fewer chromosomes. Reduced heterochromatin structure. Elimination of superfluous junk sequences. Most of the information flew over Naruto's head. He didn't understand the words, but he was able to get the meaning. The Protheans were just monstrous slaves to the Reapers. Whatever they had been before, that was gone. But a question stayed with him. Why were the collectors kidnapping humans? Why were they comparing themselves to humans? A thought came to him, something that was prompted by a memory of Ilos. It had been that Prothean 6 telling them about how humanity fought against the Prothean Empire. What if they? He began to ask, only to stop. It was horrifying and scary to even think about. The others looked at him. What if they what? Asked Grunt. Look, I've got 2 ideas, either of which are pretty. Miranda looked around once more. She gave him a long look. Considering where we are, I would think whatever they are doing is not pretty. In spite of where they were, both Ruko and Gurus snickered at her dry sarcasm. If his helmet was down, she would have seen the frowning glare he was giving her. I think the collectors are taking the human from the terminus to either figure out how to give themselves chakra. Wait, what? Zaid said, stopping him. The fuck you say? I said they might be trying to give themselves chakra. You've gotta be fucking kidding me. He looked at the merc. Is it so hard to believe? The tribe bought me from the shadow broker just to figure out how to get chakra. The collectors might be doing the same thing. It could be something the Reapers ordered them to do or something that was brought with them when they were made into collectors. Jacob was confused. Wait, what do you mean by that last one? He asked the blonde. I didn't think the Protheans had chakra. They didn't, he replied. When my team and I went after Saren, I learned that humanity had been around during the time of the Prothean Empire. To the people who hadn't known about that before now were completely thunderstruck. That's impossible, Miranda told him. What you're saying is impossible, Commander. I heard it straight from a Prothean 6. Anyway, he continued, ignoring the look she was giving him, it told me that humanity was in rebellion against the Protheans. Maybe it was for an actual reason, but I'm beginning to think that it's more basic. Humans had chakra, refused to give it to the Protheans, and the Protheans went to war trying to get it. He looked back at the corpse. They might be still doing that. They all thought it over. It was an idea that scared them. There was no way else to go about it. You said that was one idea, Gurus said. What's the second? Naruto kept his gaze on the collector corpse. The Reapers have them grabbing humans to make them the new collectors. A cold, slimy feeling washed down Miranda's back at his words, and she found herself looking down at the corpse. The Reapers wanted to make her into one of those. They wanted her to be a mindless creature that was obedient to their will. No. She would refuse to let that happen to her. But even as she defiantly refused, there was a part of her that realized something. It was possible the Reapers could do it. They were able to destroy the Protheans, a mighty civilization, and make them their slaves. What was stopping them from doing it again? In the midst of her thoughts, she felt fingers touch her hand. With a start, she looked down at the hand holding hers tightly. It belonged to Ruko. She looked to the blonde. She saw the fear in her eyes. She was thinking the same things and she was scared. Miranda was scared, but she was glad that she could feel Ruko's hand in hers. She gave it a quick squeeze. Ruko squeezed back, just as quickly. Fuck that, Musashi declared. They are not going to be turning me into a fucking collector. I'll kill them all before they can even get the chance. Eric nodded. I will help you. I hope you guys don't plan on leaving me out, Gurus said to them both. I might not be human, but I think I've got enough human friends and teammates to be concerned for you guys. The rest of the team nodded in acknowledgement and agreement. They would not let that happen. Naruto was glad to see the steel in their spines showing. That's damn good to hear. Now let's get a move on. We still need to find what we're looking for. He turned away from the computers and the bodies, following the path deeper into the ship. The others fell in behind him. But it didn't take them long to see something else that made them uneasy. The path was beginning to be littered with pods for humans. At first, they appeared to be placed like they had just been tossed aside. But the further they went in, the more they began to look stacked. When they reached the next room, Gurus said, "Look, on the ceiling. More of those strange pods." They all looked up. The pods were attached to the walls and the ceilings like they belonged there. They were close, and that meant that there were people inside. There were tunnels higher up on the walls that further than they could see, and each was filled with the pods. Odin's spear, Eric said at the sight of all those pods. Miranda started at them, trying to count so she could get an accurate number. But there were just too many. There must be hundreds of them. How many do you think are full? I don't think that's a question any of us want to hear the answer to, Kasumi said to her. No one else said anything, but the idea was quietly agreed on. But even if they agreed on it, the AI following their movements wasn't of the same mind. I detect no life in the pods, Commander, Edi told Naruto. It is probable that the victims inside died when the ship lost primary power. Thank you, Edi, he replied tensely, his hands gripping his guns tightly. He was angry at the amount of people probably dead, but he couldn't do anything about it now. They followed the path up to higher elevation. It took them away from the sight of all those pods, something that they were glad for. They were steadily going up an incline that was starting to make the muscles in their legs burn, except for the Krogan. They heard another cry, but this one sounded closer than before. They froze and then shifted into attack positions, waiting for any sudden ambushes. The minutes started to crawl as they held the position. Anyone see anything? Eric asked aloud. I see nothing, Quan Misley told him. She had her hand ready over her pack but hadn't reached in yet. I've got nothing, Jacob said, looking down the sights of his gun. Another couple of minutes passed and nothing happened. All right, Naruto said as he stood back up, keep it moving. They continued their hike upwards. Just as they were about to reach the crest, Joker came onto the comm, saying, Commander, you gotta hear this. On a hunch, I asked Edi to run an analysis on this ship. And? The blonde asked. Edi took over the comm. I compared the EM profile against data recording by the original Normandy 2 years ago. They're an exact match. And it's the same ship I thought had been destroyed back on Horizon, he added. All of these details were piling up way too much to be a coincidence. Something is going on here, he muttered to himself. You got that right, Commander, his pilot agreed. Watch your back. Should go without saying, Kurama remarked. His tone was sarcastic, but Naruto could hear the undercurrent of worry there too. Gurus shared a look with Eric and Musashi. They were thinking the same thing because their guts were telling them the same things. This was all too easy and the details were adding up in a way they didn't like. Naruto, the Turian said to the blonde, should we abort? We can't. Considering all that's being revealed. I know, Gurus, Naruto said, cutting him off before he could start. Trust me, I know. But we've come to get something and we need it. I don't know if we'll have another chance like this again, not while people are still being taken. So we have to keep going. He knew that to be true, and he heard the conviction in the human's voice. All right, he conceded. Let's keep going. They kept walking, hitting the crest. It led them out of the tunnels into a more open-air place on the ship. But as they emerged, they saw pods on the far wall. It was far away that the pods looked more like a large chunk of glowing amber. It wasn't just one chunk either. They looked in every direction that they could. The glowing amber stretched from wall to wall by crossing over the ceiling too. And they were in an area that could have fit at least 20 ships the size of the Normandy, if not more. The implications were not lost on anyone. In fact, it came crashing down like a tidal wave bearing cement. Zeus's raging balls, Kasumi breathed out as she looked at all the pods. While others might have looked at her oddly for the exotic swearing any other time, the rest of the team agreed with her. This is unbelievable, Gurus said. He was trying to stare all of them at the same time, but there was just too many of them. I cannot believe what I am seeing, Eric declared. He too was looking at them all, but it was with fear. Seeing all the pods, it reminded him of stories he had been told of Helheim when he was a child. This was probably the closest he was going to get an actual view of that place. Believe it, Eric, Zaid told him. They're all there for us to see. The merc wondered what it would be like to be trapped in one of those pods. He shuddered at the thought of it, and told himself to stop thinking about it. Miranda didn't even want to count the number of pods along the walls. The sheer amount was staggering, and that would have been putting it lightly. They could take every human in the Terminus systems and not have enough to fill these pods, she declared. Jacob paused and then looked at her. If we weren't in this kind of situation, I would take a little more pleasure in saying this. You're thinking too small, Miranda. What are you? She stopped short when she thought bigger. It was horrifying. Oh fuck. Ruko turned her head to look at her. That's not a good way to say oh fuck. Is now really the time for her to talk about what she's doing to Miranda? Isabu asked. The turtle was by no means a prude, but come on. There was a time and a place. I don't think that's what she's doing, Coco told the Sanbai. Well, what is she doing? You mean besides stating the obvious? Shikaka asked. Not now. Hey, I was being serious. In fairness, it's hard to tell with you sometimes, Matatabi said, coming to Isabu's defense. Earth, Thane said. They plan to invade Earth. He said it almost quietly, and yet, the words seemed to ring out like a bell amongst them. Not just Earth, Morden said. Rough estimate of pod numbers suggests collectors plan to take every human alive. Oh fuck, Ruko swore. Naruto was scared by the number of pods and the implication behind them. But he couldn't let that, or the fact the collectors were after him and the entirety of the human race, stop what it was they had come to do. We need to keep moving, people, he told the team. We have to if we want to stop the collectors. They started forward again. There was an uneasy feeling in the air, more so than before. Out in the open area, it almost felt like they were being watched. They didn't know where it was coming from or who was doing it. But they kept eyes out all the same. It stayed that as the path went from organic back to metal and concrete. Gurus kept his eyes forward and he saw the platform ahead. It had a ring around the middle for some small defense. Tubes filled with yellow liquid surrounded the platform, but he was more focused on what was on the platform. He opened his mouth, but Zaid beat him to it, saying, Hey, everyone's seeing this. Grunt saw it too. Looks like some kind of platform, he said shortly. It looks like it has a control panel on it, Gurus told him. Good idea, Morden said to the Turian. Might be way to extract crucial information. Let's get to it then, Musashi declared. Thane looked around silently. Something is amiss, he said. I think that's already been established, Zaid told him. It is not just what we see. There is something else. Something that we are not seeing, he replied. The merc groaned to himself. Oh hell, you're not going to be one of the people who does some kind of a mystic bullshit, are you? The Drell looked at him. I am an assassin, not a mystic. It wasn't shown on his face, but his tone implied that he didn't like being compared to the latter. No, wait, Miranda said, looking around now too. He's right. Something is not right here. Jacob looked at her. When she said something like that, it was crucial that she was listened to. What is it? Where are the bodies of the collector crew? They had just reached the platform, but the question made them pause. Where was the ship's crew? If the Turian patrol had been able to damage enough to cause majority loss of support systems, they should have seen more than just the one collector on the slab. But they hadn't. Commander, something is definitely not right. This could be a trap. And again, not now, Shikaku, Naruto told the Tanuki. He walked onto the platform. Everyone, keep an eye out. Form a defensive perimeter around the platform wall. While they did that, he approached the console. Commander? Said Joker. He stopped instantly. What is it, Joker? I don't want to cause unnecessary alarm. You already did that when you said It was never good when someone used that word. What is it? I'm getting reports that a tribe ship has just entered the cluster and is heading to this system. I think they found you again. They all stopped at those words. Fuck, just what we need. Now they were going to have problems that they don't need. Do you have an ETA? The closest I can give you is soon. Fuck me and our lives, Ruko swore. This is the last thing we need, and what's worse, we can't even get a proper timing. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just letting you know. Joker, I'm not going to shoot you. But I am on the verge of coming back to this ship and throwing you around like a rag doll if we get more bad news. Okay, enough of that, proclaimed Musashi, overriding the blonde women. The ex-cop had seen the way it would have gone many times before. If Joker said one more bad thing, intentional or not, Ruko would go back to the ship and throw him around like a rag doll. The only way to prevent that was to nip it in the bud and keep her attention on the here and now. Ruko, we're trying to do a job here? She glared at him. I know that. I'm just making sure. She didn't like the way he was directing her attention. Musashi, I will break that stick of yours over your head. He gave up and looked over at Miranda. Would you take care of her already? He silently ordered the brunette. If there was anyone who would be able to calm the blonde down now, it would be her. Am I a nanny? She asked back. But still she went over to Ruko's side. Not now, she whispered in her ear. Stay on point. Ruko bared her teeth in anger but also fear because of that fate. Fine, she replied quietly. Miranda stepped away and they went back to work. EDI Naruto said, What do I need to do to connect you to this computer? You will need to create a bridge so I can access the collector data banks, she told him. She gave him instructions that he followed. As he finished the last keystroke, he told her, All right, it's all yours. Data mining in progress, Commander, she replied. Things fell silent on the comm, so he turned his attention to the defenses. Most of his team was at the ring with weapons at the ready. Guris held back along with Musashi and Eric. Both of the ex-cops had sniper rifles out while the Einherjar set up his mortar. He probably thought that with the amount of room they had, he would be able to hit something without potentially blowing a hole in the ship. Quan Misley came to him. Commander? She said quietly. What? He asked. Should I put down mines? He considered it for a moment, taking a look at where they were standing. The platform they were on wasn't that big. There was only room for the console, space between it and the wall, and a small strip of floor outside the wall. No, he finally said. We don't know where they might come. You put down mines, you could injure us more than them. Stick to grenades and your guns. Yes, sir, she replied, not arguing with his decision. She turned around, her hand already going for the pack. He turned back to the computer. It suddenly short-circuited and made a small explosion as it died. He stepped back from the miniature shockwave emitted but held his footing. I'm okay, he told the others when they looked back at him. What was that? Kasumi asked him. I don't know. I didn't even touch the thing. Thane's head suddenly snapped to the tubes. Something is moving in there, he told them. They all looked at the tubes. There was something in each of them. They couldn't see what it was due to the tube's design, but they were put on alert even more. What's going on? Joker asked through the comm. Naruto replied, The computer exploded and we've got things in the tubes. Any chance you can tell me what's going on, Joker? I don't know about you guys, but the ship just got hit by a major power surge. Everything good? He asked. Yeah, we're back up now. I managed to divert the majority of the Overlord to non-critical systems, EDI informed him. Commander, it was not a malfunction. This was a trap. The ground beneath them shifted and gravity shot upwards along with the platform. What the fuck? Demanded Grunt as he fought to hold his balance. What the fuck did you do, Uzumaki? Zaid asked. It wasn't me. He refuted. Well, then who the fuck was it? The platform started spinning around, making them work even harder to hold their balance. How the hell am I supposed to know? Anyone got any ideas? How about the blindingly obvious one? Said Musashi as he held onto the busted console for support, the collectors. Naruto silently agreed with his sentiment. EDI, a little help here would be greatly appreciated. He all but shouted into the comm. But the AI didn't have good news for them. I'm having trouble maintaining the connection. There is someone else in the system. Of course there is, Gur said, somehow managing to work exasperation into his voice. That's it. We are getting a dedicated hacker. It's a good thing we're going to get Tali after this then, Naruto thought to himself. The platform came to a stop and they all fell to their knees or back. He lifted the visor up, seeing two of everything that wouldn't stay still. But even when he was dizzy, he managed to say, "If you're going to hurl, make sure you do it with the visor up." No reply to that since they were just as dizzy. Once it passed, they got back to their feet. The platform had stopped moving, but now they were airborne. "Unexpected," Morden said as he peered cautiously over the edge. Grunt reached out and pulled him back. "You want to slip over and fall, lizard?" Aware of own balance. Did not extend far enough to fall over. He smiled at the Krogan. "Glad you care." Grunt snorted and let him go. "Just don't die." "People," Jacob said as he stared off into the distance, "we've got a problem." "We already know that, Jacob," Miranda told him as she made sure that she still wasn't dizzy. He shook his head. "No, we've got more problems. Problems that are currently incoming," he told her. The team looked where he was looking. Other platforms like their own were airborne and coming their way. Collectors were on those platforms, and they looked ready for a fight. Ruko was the one who summed up the situation rather perfectly with a single question. "We just can't catch a fucking break, can we?" Her brother had the perfect reply. "We're in the wrong business for that." As the platforms came closer, EDI came back onto the comm connection re-established, she declared. "I need to finish the download before I can override any systems." "How long will that take?" Thane asked her. "It will probably be longer than you would prefer." "If I didn't know any better, I would think that EDI tried to use some humor," Naruto noted. "We'll have to make do until you're done. But please hurry the fuck up." "She's not a person, Commander," Joker said, joining the conversation. "She wouldn't know fucking if she looked up in the dictionary." In spite of the situation, EDI still managed to get a shot back at him. "I would not need to look the definition up in the dictionary, Mr. Morrow. All I would have to do is look up your extranet search history." All right, he said before she could finish. Message received. "I'll stop now." "Thank you. I must concentrate." "Those platforms are getting closer," Zaid announced. "I hope someone has a strategy or a plan." He was looking directly at Naruto as he spoke. The blonde might have felt insulted, if it was any other time. "Snipers, take your shots. Eric, see if you can't soften them up with that mortar." "Right," Eric said, already getting to work. It would be difficult to hit a moving target, especially as they got closer. But he was always up for a challenge. The others waited for the platforms to fly closer. The platforms approached theirs with a speed that managed to seem to be both agonizingly slow and amazingly quick at the same time. As the first one reached them and began to settle in, they opened fire. The shields the collectors had were quite good. They were only able to take down one before the platforms latched together. As the collectors started to come across, both Miranda and Ruko flared their biotics. They didn't attack separately, but rather together in a move Ruko had taken to calling the pop-up special delivery. Miranda threw her biotics in a thumpin' low maneuver at the collectors. It's a maneuver that is only really supposed to work on vehicles. On a person, it would just send them upwards and they were able to reorient themselves. They would be able to recover and fight back. That was where Ruko came in. As soon as the collectors went up, she threw her biotics at them. It would hit and send them flying off into the distance, and at the heights they were at, that was fatal. However, it was also a testament to the collectors and how quickly they could move that the move only got 2 of them. It would have been 3 as an area effect if a collector hadn't been grabbed away from the edge. The events quickly became a firefight standstill. They stayed put, and the collectors were forced to stay where they were. But just as quickly as it turned into a standstill, it was just as quick to change. "Another platform incoming!" shouted Garrison, warning, tracking the second platform with his scope. The other snipers turned towards it too, and they all started firing. Eric joined them with the mortar. It quickly proved fruitless when the platform got too close. It didn't attach like the first but rather circle around the edge, giving the collectors there more of a range. "That's cheating," Kasumi complained. "Shut up and shoot," Zaid ordered her. He rose up and took aim at the second platform. He got off a few shots before the collectors closer pinned him down with their own fire. "Some support would really be helpful here." "Working on it," replied Grunt. He was mowing down collectors as fast and as best as he could. His aggressiveness had their attention drawn to him. Even though they were controlled by the Reapers, the collectors still had enough cognitive function to understand a simple formula. A bigger enemy usually meant tougher enemy. A tougher enemy meant that he would be harder to kill. If he was harder to kill, it would make the entire fight take longer. So, it was best to get rid of him first. Quan Misley kept track of the second platform, watching its movements. When it was the closest, she pulled out 2 grenades, primed them, and threw them in the path going back. They landed perfectly on the platform and detonated. The twin explosions got a good number of collectors, but there were still a lot of them on the platform. 41% complete, EDI announced over the comm. We're almost at the halfway point, Naruto told himself, using it to keep shooting. Do you need me to state the obvious? Kurama asked. I'd rather you not. They both knew what the obvious was. It didn't need repeating, especially in this situation. All right then, the fox conceded. He fell silent until he saw his Jinchuriki take a hard hit to the stomach. The shield still held, but still. That is going to hurt later. I know, the blonde replied, returning fire at the offending collector. EDI, a little faster, please, Musashi said. Jacob fired his rifle at a collector, chipping away at the shields until they were gone. When they were, he kept shooting until it was dead. As the collector fell, he saw something on the horizon. He realized what it was and his heart sank. We've got a third inbound. Not if I have anything to say about it, Eric proclaimed, swinging his mortar in the direction of the third. He shelled it hard and it quickly faltered. A few more shells and the third platform went from flying to crashing. Zaid crowed in victory, both for the platform and the collector he managed to shoot to death. Take that, you fucking insects! Nice shot, Eric, Jacob told the Einherjar. Do not be too victorious, Thane warned them while he fired his pistol. We still must deal with these platforms. They got serious again and poured on the firepower. There were fewer collectors on the floating platform now, but that didn't mean they were any less of a problem. Shit! Grunt suddenly swore. What? Ruko demanded, looking at him briefly. What is it? I'm out of ammo. His gun was flashing red and showing 0 bullets left. This was bad. So switch to a different gun. She had a point there, one that he hadn't considered. He had gotten used to using a machine gun, or assault rifle. Right, he declared, switching to the shotgun he carried. He wasn't the only who was on the verge of having the same people. The others were beginning to become slower with their rate of fire, choosing to conserve ammo. Gurus ran out of ammo for the sniper rifle and was forced to change to the assault rifle. 84%, EDI announced. Oh, are we there already? Zaid asked sarcastically. Kasumi gave him an irritated look. Shut up and shoot. EDI, would you just get us out of this shitstorm already? Ruko demanded over a burst of gunfire. She was using her biotics instead of her gun, and she could already feel herself getting tired. I am simultaneously fighting collector firewalls in over 8,000 nodes, the AI replied. I am tasked to capacity. I know this isn't the time, Musashi said, but was I the only one who thought she sounded a little testy there? No, I heard it as well, Thane told him. Oh good, he said, a little relieved. He thought that the battle was getting to him. I heard it too, Grunt said. Is she getting emotions? Miranda shut down that train of thought instantly, the same as the collector she was shooting at. That is a conversation and a problem for another day. Keep your attention on the fight in front of you. Another platform is coming, Eric announced, watching it fly closer. Well, hit the fucking thing already, Zaid shouted at him. He was already priming his mortar for a shot. Gurus aimed at the platform. Damn, I don't have the range. This was why he went with the sniper rifle. With that kind of gun, he was just fine in killing the bad guys. Musashi held up his own rifle. I've got it, he told the Turian, already tracking the first collector that he could see. He fired twice and it fell dead. Still, that was one collector out of who knew how many. There was no use complaining or wondering about it. He had collectors to kill. Between his shooting and Eric's shelling, there were considerably less collectors on the platform when it docked against theirs. But there were still a good number of them, and these looked stronger and tougher. Quan Misley, barked Naruto. But she was already moving. 2 fistfuls of smoke fire grenades were flung at them. They struck the floor and began emitting the smoke. It would stop them for a moment, and when they were engulfed, any kind of spark would make the smoke turn into fire. But for now, they could use the time to finish off the collectors that had come before. The second platform was empty now, and there were only a few left that had come from the first. We have to finish them off, now, Naruto told the others. He shot one collector that getting too close to grunt for comfort. It staggered but kept trying to move forward until it fell to the ground dead. When it was down, he quickly switched from thermal to chakra. The others saw the need too and quickly finished the remaining batch of collectors. They turned to look at the smoke. "Anybody smoke?" asked Ruko. Quan Misley simply raised a pistol at the cloud and fired a single katon bullet. The heatwave rolled over them like they were suddenly stepping into a sauna. The explosion itself didn't spread out but rather held the position it originated in. It vaporized just as fast as it had exploded, leaving a faint cloud of smoke behind. That dissipated quickly too, and they were left with the burnt bodies of the collectors. "That will work too," the blonde woman said. "Wait," Grunt said in warning as he kept his gaze on the platform. "One survived. It's coming." There was indeed a collector coming towards, barely looking affected by the explosion. It saw them and suddenly slouched forward. Assuming Naruto instantly put 2 bullets in it. The collector fell down dead as he lowered his warhawks. He stared at the body. "Why does this feel familiar?" "You did the same thing on Horizon," Kurama reminded him. "Oh, right. Need that memory checked, Gaki?" He scowled. "Not funny, furball." He looked at the rest of the bodies, mentally checking their numbers. "Anyone see more?" Ruko did a quick check too. "No, they are all dead. Find ammo if you can." While they moved amongst the bodies, he went back to the calm EDI. "How are we doing?" "You must manually re-establish my link to the command console," she instructed him. "Guess that means she's done," he thought to himself. "Same as before?" he asked her. "Yes." "All right, give me a moment." He repeated the instructions given before. Soon enough, she was plugged back into the computer. She popped up on the console. "I have regained control of the platform, Commander," she told him. "We can see that," Shikaku remarked. "Good job, EDI," Miranda told the AI. "You did well. I always work at optimal capacity." She vanished from sight. Ruko sniggered. "I think she's a little annoyed with you, cheerleader." "She's a machine," Miranda replied, annoyed now too. "She doesn't get annoyed." "Right, you keep telling yourself that." Naruto went for his calm. "Did you get what we came for?" he asked EDI. The platform shifted beneath his feet, detaching from the others and flying away. "I found data that could help us successfully navigate the Omega-4 relay." "Great. What do we need to do?" "That's not all, Commander. I have also found the Turian distress call that served as the lure for the trap. The collectors were the source. It is unusual." The platform began to lower itself into a shelf of rocks. There was a hole in the shelf they went into as it lowered. "What's so unusual about that?" "It is unusual because the Turian emergency channels have secondary encryption. It is corrupted in the message. It is not possible that the elusive man would believe that the distress call was genuine." Naruto went still. "Are you saying what I think you're saying, EDI? Are you saying that the elusive man led us here on purpose?" "It is highly probable." He frowned. "That man and I need to have a long chance soon," he thought to himself. "Are you sure?" he asked EDI. "I found the anomaly with Akatsuki defense protocols." He wrote them. "He knew it was a trap," Joker asked. "Why would he send us into a trap?" "For the same reason people would be sent on a suicide mission. If the mission is valuable enough, it's worth the risk to send people that might die to get it." He understood what the elusive man was trying to do, but that didn't mean he approved of the way it had gone. "We can worry about it later," he told the team. "We have to get out first." "This is a bad time to be optimist, Naruto," Gurus said to him. "He's right," Zaid agreed, his voice growling. "I want to know what the fuck the elusive man was thinking." In midst of collector ship. "Enemy territory," Morden said. "Not good place for discussion." "Agree with Commander. Have discussion later." As everyone started to put out their opinions about the situation, the only two who actually worked for the elusive man were silent. Both Jacob and Miranda would have argued for the elusive man, Miranda probably a little more so than Jacob, if they hadn't seen that video in the Shadow Broker's lair. But since they had, they were in doubt about what it was the Akatsuki was doing, exactly. Naruto ended the argument, beginning to bubble with a loud clap. "I said later," he told the team as they looked at him. "That means later." Commander?" said Joker. "We've got 2 more problems. The collector ship is powering up." "Oh crap," Gurus said. "This is not a crap situation," Ruko told him in complete seriousness. "We are way beyond that one. We're in full fuck territory. Joker, what's the second problem? Naruto asked his pilot. Remember that tribe ship I mentioned earlier? What about it? It has entered the system and is making its way to the collector's ship. She's right, Grunt said, looking at Ruko. We are in fuck territory. We are deep in fuck territory. You guys need to get out before their weapons come online, Joker warned them, his voice turning urgent. I'm not losing another Normandy. I do not have full control of their systems, Edi added. I will do what I can. Sending coordinates for shuttle extraction, she finished. Naruto eyed the path the platform had landed on. It led down into a tunnel that curved out of sight. All right, guys, he said to his team, raising his guns. The name of the game is now Speed Run. There is only one rule you need to know and respect: you don't stop. No matter what gets in your way, no matter what tries to stop you, you don't stop. If you need to pick up something or grab something, you do it while you run. You don't stop. Get it? Got it, they replied. Good. Then start running. I thought that the speed run was only used when it was absolutely necessary, Kurama said to his Jinchuriki. I'd say this situation qualifies. Fair enough of a point. They raced down the tunnel, following the curve of it until it ran through a door. 2 more doors were on the other side, and it could have made them stop if Edi hadn't told them, take the door on your right. Through that door was another tunnel that went downward, going into a room. There was a ramp that led downwards on the far side. That was where they needed to go. Collectors began dropping in on them when they were half across the room. Don't stop, Naruto told them as they felt the bullets hitting their shields. Only return fire if you think you have a kill shot. No biotics. They reached the other side relatively unscathed. Their feet caused a thunderstorm to dance on the floor as they went down the ramp and around the corner. The path straightened out in the way a squared staircase could only do. It was also filled with barricades and collectors. They're still behind us, Kasumi called from the back. They're in front of us too, Musashi told her before looking over at Naruto. Commander, I can make a path with my Bakken. I can aid with my axe, Eric added. No time for it, he told them both. Grunt! Krogan battering ram. Out of the way! Roared the Krogan as he charged right through the center. Musashi managed to get out of the way before the Krogan clipped him, but it was a close call. He watched as that same Krogan made a hole through the collectors. They followed through, killing any collectors that got too close. They turned the corner and hopped down to the floor below, sounding like rocks falling over a waterfall. I'm opening a door on the far side of the room, Edi told them. We see it, Naruto replied. The distance between them and the door was considerable, but they didn't have a choice. They had to keep moving. Wait, what the fuck is that? Ruko demanded, looking at the door while they ran. A creature had just floated through it, and stared at them with the same maddened hatred as the collectors. It looked like a collector, albeit a bloated one that didn't have any legs, with those zombies trailing after it like pups following their mother. It's fugly, that's for sure, Zaid told her. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter, Naruto said to them all. Don't fight it. Just keep moving. They ran a wide arc around the creature, killing the zombies if they got too close. But as they reached the door, it closed on them. Edi, what the hell? He said instantly. A temporary setback on Firewall 3217, she told him. Rerouting commands to Firewall 7164. Speed is recommended more than suggested. Floating collector turning around. It was turning around and glared at them with that same hatred. It is getting close, Eric said. Should I try to shell it? Naruto shook his head. Don't do that. You'll take too long to set up and put it all away. We don't have the time. Commander, it is beginning to look like we have nothing but time. The zombies were out in front, getting closer with each lumbering step. But Edi came back to them in that moment. I have successfully opened a door on the opposite wall. I will keep it open as long as I can. Over there, Geras announced, pointing at the new door opening with a satisfying hiss. Naruto didn't need to prompt or urge the team to move it. They were already sprinting for the door. The zombies tried to match their speed but were shot before they even got close. As soon as they were through the door, they leapt back. Edi, close the door, Miranda ordered, now. She fired on the zombies to keep them at bay, but they didn't slow down. I am already on it, she replied. The door closed just as a zombie got his arm through. The door didn't slow down when it met resistance. It just cut the arm clean off. They looked at the arm as it flopped around on the ground. Did that just happen? Grunt asked. Yes, it did, Kasumi replied. Zaid added, it'll happen more than you think. Does anyone have any idea where we are now? Musashi asked. Nothing looked familiar to him. All he knew was that they were standing in a corridor that also had a ledge to it. Gurus looked over the ledge. I'd say that we're close to the shuttle. Why's that? Down there looks familiar. Keep it moving, people, Naruto told them all. Break time is over. They could all hear the pounding on the door, so they needed no further incentive to run. The corridor took them to another door, and that door opened into another large room. The collectors in the room immediately started firing at them with enough firepower to make any sane person stop, find cover, and try to fend them off. But at that moment, Naruto Uzumaki was not a sane person. He led the running, firing back at the collectors. All he could hear was the sound of his feet moving and the guns in his hands shooting and reloading. His eyes were focused completely on the path around, a way that led up and to the left. Grunt was at his side, firing just as much as he could, the same as the others. As they got close to a collector, they would pummel it into the ground and keep moving. When they reached the tunnel point, they went back to running. But this time, they had collectors following from behind them. Commander? Said Joker. Little busy, Joker, he replied with a snap. We've got collectors on our ass. I am aware of that. I'd hate to rush you, but those weapons are about to come online and that tribe's ship is getting closer. Fuck. Ruko swore at their predicament. She turned and threw a biotic surge at the collectors. She used the momentum of her turn to spin back around and keep moving. It was something that she never could have done before her lessons with Samara. No pressure or anything, but you might want to double time it. You know, so we can leave before they blow the Normandy in half. Yeah, we get the picture, Joker, Naruto said to him. They came to a downward ramp that was beginning to get full of those zombies. Grunt! The Krogan roared with excitement and charged right through the zombies. They followed the path he made down the ramp. The shuttle was there, just off to the right. We're out of time, Commander, Joker all but shouted. We have to go. The shuttle hatch opened up, inviting as it could be. Move it, people! Naruto shouted, pushing people towards the shuttle. Zaid was shooting the rest of the bullets at the zombies and collectors, but it was doing little to none due to the numbers. They're coming this way, he told the blonde. I can see that. Just move for the shuttle. He gave the merc a push for the shuttle, something he didn't argue with. Quan Misley had a couple of grenades in her hands. It was a mixed set that she hoped would do the trick. Normally a hunter, even more so a hunter from the 666th unit, did not guess with their explosive works. But she was short on time and her cash was low. She threw the batch at the incoming force and waited. The explosion stopped the flow of the collectors and engulfed them in smoke too. It was dark, thick, and greasy. It would have caused a human to cough hard to breathe, but it just slowed them down. She would take it, turning for the shuttle. Naruto got inside just after her. Get us out of here, he roared to the shuttle pilot. The shuttle shifted and moved, flying out of the collector's ship. Strap in, people, Joker said, already sounding busy. We're going to be having a fun time getting out of here between two ships. An idea came to Naruto. Joker, can you make it so that they'll fight each other? At this point, Commander, I wouldn't have to try. The shuttle shuddered and came to a bumping spot. They had gotten back aboard the ship. As soon as the hatch opened, Naruto was out and racing for the command deck. As soon as he stepped out onto the deck, he heard Joker still going. I won't be able to dodge both of them, EDI. Get us the hell out of here. Specify a destination, Mr. Moreau, she told him. Anywhere that's not here. It didn't sound good to Naruto. He approached the map. I'm going full immersion, he shouted in warning. Now? Called back Joker. Yes, now. He wanted to make sure that they got out of there safely. If things got bad, he would have to use a jutsu to aid the escape. But as it turned out, he wasn't needed. He watched as the Normandy evaded both the collector and the tribe's ship. As it flew towards relatively safe space, the two ships start to bear down on each other. The last thing he saw before he pulled himself out was the sight of them opening fire on each other. All right, people, Joker said over the intercom. We are in the clear. I repeat, we are in the clear. Naruto rested against the rails for a moment, feeling the weariness of everything that had just happened. But then he shoved it down and away. He spun around and walked for the conference room. Joker, get me the elusive man, now! You got it. The elusive man was sitting down this time, looking calm as ever. But that only served to stoke Naruto's anger. You son of a bitch, he snarled out. The elusive man just lit his cigarette and blew out smoke. Commander, he said in greeting. Looks like EDI extracted some interesting data before the collector's ship came back online. That's not all she found. You knew that the signal was a fake one, but you still sent us in there. His eyes hardened a little, which only served to make the glow seem more eerie. We're at war, he declared shortly. The collectors are taking humans, and every minute we waste is one more we give the enemy to prepare. You don't think I'm not aware of that? It still doesn't excuse the fact that you send us on a Kami-forsaken suicide mission. He didn't reply right away, choosing to reach out and tap ash out from his cigarette. Without that information, we don't reach the collector homeworld. And you and every other human may as well be dead, he said in justification. It was a trap, but I was confident in your abilities. He stood up slowly. And don't forget EDI. The collectors couldn't have anticipated her. Naruto scowled harder at all those reasons. He knew them to be true, but he was still angry. You still sent us on a suicide mission. The least you could have done was to tell us what we were going into. That was what they had done during the war. Each suicide mission had been voluntarily. No one was forced into them. I needed the collectors to believe they had the upper hand. Telling you could have tipped them off in any number of ways. Besides, I wouldn't have sent you in if I didn't think you could succeed. The shinobi still scowled at him. You should have told us what the hell we were doing. The elusive man waved it away. Now is not the time to act like a child or to have petty grudges. Things are about to get a lot tougher. EDI confirmed our suspicions. As he smoked, he continued. The Reapers and the Collector ships use an advanced identify friends/foe system that the relays recognize. All we need to do is get our hands on one of those IFFs. He folded his arms. Why do I have the feeling you're going to make that easier for me and yet still manage to surprise me at the same time? He didn't answer that question. Instead, he answered the silent question. We have a science team working on a derelict Reaper now. I need you to go and pick up its IFF. The blonde had been right. That made things easier, but he was still surprised. A Reaper? He said. How the hell did you manage to find a Reaper? An Alliance science team recently determined that the Great Rift on the planet Klendagon is actually an impact crater from a mass accelerator weapon. A very old mass accelerator, he added before taking a drink from his glass. The sound of it being set down echoed around them. I sent a team to find either the weapon or its target. They found both. The weapon was defunct, but it helped us plot the flight of the intended target, a 37-million-year-old derelict Reaper. We found it damaged and trapped in the gravity of a brown dwarf. Should he ask what a brown dwarf is? Isabu asked the others. They looked at one another and shrugged. While they did want to know what a brown dwarf was, but they also figured that now wasn't the time for a lesson. Naruto knew that as well and chose to ignore it. What could have taken down a Reaper? He asked the elusive man. It took me using a Baijidama to take out one. This vessel is a relic from a battle waged while mammals took their first steps on Earth, the man replied, tapping out ashes again. There are no traces of the species that took the shot. Perhaps it was their one moment of defiance before being wiped out. Or perhaps it was my ancestors trying to fight back before only having that last option, he thought to himself. After listening to all the recordings he found, he was beginning to have a deep and troubling suspicion about the history of the galaxy. And what's the catch? There was always a catch. We lost contact with Dr. Chandana's team soon after they boarded. Initial reconnaissance revealed no clues, and it was risky to commit more resources, he explained, but we need that IFF. I'll forward the coordinates to Joker. In the meantime, I suggest you tell your crew I didn't risk their lives unnecessarily. It will make things easier going forward. The blonde looked at him for another moment before turning his back. EDI, end this conversation and get the team in here. When the team got to the conference room, he told them what he had learned from the elusive man. Jacob was the first to open his mouth. So, the elusive man didn't sell us out. Could have fooled me, he remarked. Lied to us, Morden said as he paced the room. Used us. Needed access to the collector data banks. Necessary risk. Zaid threw a glare at the Solarian. Speak for yourself, you fucking lizard. I don't appreciate being used like that. If I'm getting into something, I want all the details. Would you have gone if you did know all the details? Thane asked him. The Drell wasn't standing at the table with the others. He was leaning against the wall, watching all of them mill around. Do we even know if this IFF will work? Quan Misley asked, looking at everyone. No one answered her because they did not know the answer. But EDI did, and she popped up to say, My analysis is accurate, Agent Quan Misley. I have also determined the approximate location of the collector homeworld based on navigational data from their vessel. A map of the galaxy appeared in the middle of the table and a marker was shown too. They watched the marker get closer and closer to the center of the galaxy, stopping just off-center. That can't be right, Miranda protested as she stared at the marker. What's wrong with it? Naruto asked her. That's the galactic core. And? He asked, still waiting for the explanation as to why it was impossible. Nothing can live there, Jacob explained to him. The core is just black holes and exploding suns. There are no habitable planets there. Morden stared at the map intently. His mind was already racing with the possibilities, looking at them and thinking them over before discarding them or giving them more thought. Could be artificial construction, he suggested. Space station protected by powerful mass effect fields and radiation shields. Miranda thought the idea and dismissed it. It was just impossible, and for a simple reason. Even the collectors don't have that kind of technology, she told the Solarian. What about the Reapers? Gurus offered. If they built the Citadel and the mass relays, what's one space station that can hang safely around a black hole? The logical conclusion is that a small safe zone exists on the far side of the relay. A region where ships can survive, Edai said, showing up again. Standard relay transits protocols would not allow safe transport. Drift of several thousand kilometers is common, and would be fatal in the galactic core. The Reaper IFF must trigger the relay to use more advanced, encrypted protocols. So we're still going to need it either way, Jacob said, leaning up from the table. I guess we should start plotting the course. No, Naruto said, breaking his silence. We don't go after the IFF until I say we do. And I say that we have more important concerns than that. He walked away from the table. EDI, he said as he went for the door. The AI showed itself again, but it also had something to say. Commander, if it is about Tali, I'm afraid you will have to go to the Reaper derelict. He paused and looked back at the blue orb, ignoring everyone else. That's where she was in the first place, wasn't she? Yes. Oh hell, he groaned. Codex entry, Humanity and the Systems Alliance, the Long War. The event known as the Long War was named not because of its duration, but because of the distance involved. The Down Under is located in the southern hemisphere of Earth, while Midgard and the Frontier are located in the northern hemisphere. During the time of the war, it took a ship full of troops almost 4 months, in good weather, to reach the Down Under. The events leading up to the war began after both the Frontier and Midgard began colonizing the Down Under. Midgard had been using it as a prison colony, and the Frontier started to impose taxes on their colonists that were objected. Even after the Cracked Hill meetings that brought the two colonies into one, a good portion of the colonists felt like they were being treated like second-rate citizens. People soon started to gather the protesters into a cohesive group, making their voice even louder. See, the 28. They labored hard and longed to reach the ears of government of their parent country. It seemed that nothing would reach them and decisive action was being considered. Both the Empire and Midgard saw the chance for danger in the Down Under and sent military forces to enforce authority. It only served to make the protests more heated and the idea of rebellion look more and more reasonable. Rebellion occurred when one of the 28, Clayton family, was taken into custody in order to be illegally forced into becoming the sex slave of the new frontier magister, Rachel Glenbrook. The rest of the 28 broke him out and fled into the rough lands. Glenbrook sent men after them and the entire continent erupted into war. The colonists fell into two groups, those who stayed loyal to the Frontier and Midgard, often derogatorily called by tamed Maras by the opposite side, and those who were rebelled, called Wild Riders. Fighting occurred in the rough lands where the rebels had the advantage. They used the terrain to their advantage, often using raids and ambushes as opposed to the battles that the armies were trained for. However, they were not trained or prepared for any attacks on any major sites, so they could not do so. They were able to take and occupy towns and small cities surrounding the rough lands. By dividing the continent into two, the rebels prevented any united front. After 2 years of fighting, the Marines were sent in to end it. They took control of both Frontier and Midgardian forces, but instead of crushing the Wild Riders like expected, they offered the rebels a chance to sit down and offered peace terms. When accepted, the rebels found that the terms were quite generous: the removal of Frontier and Midgardian forces from the Down Under, the chance to establish their own government, and once it was proven that they could govern themselves, the chance to join the Human Alliance. The Wild Riders agreed to the terms, but demanded one thing in return: that Rachel Glenbrick be arrested and imprisoned. At that point, her crimes against Clayton were not public knowledge. While she was the daughter of Lord Glenbrick, Secretary of the Navy in the Iron King's Ring, Rachel was also known for having done her best to keep the Frontier colony going during the war. As such, the Frontier protested the demand. However, once her secret was publicly revealed, both the Marines and the Midgardians agreed with the rebels, and the Frontier could not defend her. What cemented her imprisonment was when Clayton looked at the Frontier delegation in the eyes and uttered his now famous words, "I am not a goddamned sex toy." Both enemy forces left the Down Under, taking what loyal colonists who would follow. The Marines stayed for a year to oversee the new government before leaving as well. Within 10 years, the Human Alliance recognized and welcomed the Down Under as a member, which they accepted gratefully. Rachel Glenbrick lived out the rest of her days in prison, without any chance at receiving parole. Chapter 57. This is going way too far. Location: Naruto. And I'm back here again, the blonde thought as he moved through the ash-filled forest. The shades moved past him, whispers of conversations falling short when they reached his ears. He was getting a little sick of being here. What was the point? Was it just to show him what happened after he left? Was it some kind of cruel trick his mind was playing on him just to pass the time? He wasn't the only who was getting vastly irritated by what was currently happening. "Oh, for the love of the old man, we're here again?" Kurama demanded. "Yep," he answered. A shade walked through and a cold feeling washed over him. It had only been for a moment, but in that moment, he felt like he had gone north, as Eric would put it. He could never let another shade pass through him again. It was horrible. Why does this keep happening? Do you think I know? Gaki, if you knew, I would throttle you to tell me why you keep doing this to us. It's not so bad, Shikaka said. It's kinda like watching a movie. Gyuki groaned. Of all the ways you could have put it, you had to say it like that. We're talking about the life of Naruto's friend who's been dead for over 2,000 years here. Don't just call it a movie. Naruto would have thanked the Hachibi for his defense. But then he saw two shades solidifying as they walked past him. They turned into Sakura and her apprentice. Ira looked a few years older than the last time he had seen her. She was more woman than girl. He knew instantly what he had to do. He pivoted on his foot and went after them both. As he followed them, the forest began to fade away, taking on the familiar vague fuzzy look. The land around them changed and morphed, becoming a hallway. It was tall with a vaulted ceiling. He frowned. He had seen that kind of ceiling before. It hit him faster than he could blink. There in Midgard? What the hell was Sakura doing back in Midgard? He would have thought that she would never come back here. "Thank you again for coming, Sensei," Ira told Sakura as they walked. She didn't walk shoulder to shoulder with Sakura, more like a few paces behind. "Did you think I wouldn't?" Sakura asked her. "Well, when the discussion about collaborating on different medical procedures was announced to be held in Midgard, I was worried you would refuse on principle." "Principle?" she repeated. She made it sound like she knew what her student had meant but still wanted to hear her say aloud. It was a move that Naruto had seen Tsunade use on Sakura and Ino. It was a way to make them to get to where they needed to be without much prompting. And judging by how quickly Ira answered, this wasn't the first time she had been subjected to the technique. "Everyone in Midgard knows about how you feel about us," she explained. "They also know that you've got a very big reputation." "Do I now?" She nodded. "I think some people have started worshipping you as one of Odin's Valkyries." Isn't that nice?" Ira frowned. "Sensei, please don't do that to me. It wasn't funny the first time you did it, and it's not funny now. We both know you're not a helpless old lady." Sakura huffed, her shoulders moving up and down. "Ruin my fun, why don't you?" she asked. Naruto was a little caught off by his former teammate's actions. When the hell did she get like this? This was not the Sakura he had known. She had been the voice of reason on their team, when she wasn't losing her temper or behaving like a fangirl, which they were all glad died away back when they were genin. To see her trying to act like a little old lady and sound theatrically annoyed when called out on it was not something he would expect. "Well, this is different," Sun remarked. "Any different than when we saw her in mourning, being vengeful or depressed?" Matatabi asked. The Nibby did raise a good point. Watching her when she was in those moments was hard for Naruto. It had never seemed like her. But now, watching her be on the other end of the spectrum, it was even more weird. "Maybe," Isabu started to suggest, only to stop. "Maybe what?" the blonde asked. "It's nothing, never mind." "Oh no, you don't get off that easily. You started the thought, Isabu. Finish it." The turtle hesitated for a long moment, dragging it out long than he should have. But then he finally said, "Maybe she's just trying to be like you a little? You know, keep you around?" He hadn't thought about that idea. Looking at the two women, listening to them talk and listening to how Sakura sounded, it did ring a bit true. The way she teased her student was something that he did too when he wanted to play around with his team. Of course, he had never done the little old lady bit. But the idea was still the same. He watched them from a few paces behind. Sakura was doing a good job of doing what he would have done. "I don't know if I should be flattered or be put off by this." "Why would you be put off by this?" Koko asked. To him, it seemed to be the highest kind of remembering. "I'm watching my old teammate acting a little bit like me. It's like watching one thing trying to be something else. She could just be going insane," Komiai suggested. "Hey! Watch it! Not in that kind of way, Naruto. In the way old people go insane. There's a term for it, I know that. If a Kabutomushi could frown, then Nanabai would have been doing that right then and there. I just can't remember what it is. Kami, this is annoying." "What is it?" "Dementia?" offered Saiken. "Yes, that's it. That's the word." Naruto was still not happy with the Nanabai. "So what you're suggesting is that Sakura is slowly going senile?" He shook his head. "No, I refuse to believe that." "Naruto, no. If Sakura was going senile, she wouldn't be here. She's a medical kunoichi for crying out loud. She would know what it would look like." Or Matatabi said, "Maybe she's just lonely and trying to remember all of her friends." He paused. "What do you mean?" "Look at her, Naruto. She's old. Just how many of the Konoha 12 are still alive now?" That question left with a raw emptiness in his heart. It made him look at Sakura with a new pair of eyes. She may be putting on a teasing theatrical display, but he could see how slow she took her pace now. Each time she put a foot down, she leaned onto it like she had to put all of her weight on it before she could move the other leg. Ira could have easily outpaced her given how young she was, but she stayed behind Sakura. Her hair had threads of white hidden inside the gray. She wasn't getting old anymore. She was old. "Sensei," Ira said. Her tone had become serious, different from before. It brought his attention back to the women. "What?" Sakura said. "Thank you for doing this." "Ira, you've said that already. This one isn't about the meeting. It's about what we're going to do next." "We're going to meet your family," she told the younger woman, making it sound like it was nothing to be concerned. "That's all there is to it." "Well, there might be a bit more to it," she suggested. "I mean, Ira, you wanted me to meet your family when we came here." "But you know who my family is," she protested somewhat. The somewhat part of it made Naruto pay more attention. Was she from a family that Sakura had wrecked when she had gone on her rampage during the war? If that was the case, what they were walking into could be a very bad idea. "I should stop them," the blonde decided. He made his way closer, but his legs felt like they were stuck in molasses again. "Arg, why does this always happen to me?" "Would you like an answer to that question?" Sun asked him. "No. It was rhetorical." "Yes, I know who your family is," Sakura told Ira. A large door came into sight, and they were getting closer to it. "I would be a poor teacher if I didn't check on where my student had come from. But I would be an even poorer teacher if I refused my student when she asked me to meet her family." They stopped in front of the door. Ira reached out and knocked on it, making it rattle on its hinges. "It's me," she called out. The door yanked open and a woman stood there. It was clear that she was Ira's mother. They had the same beauty, but hers was more mature and dignified. The gray strands in her hair only added to the dignity she had. As soon as she saw her daughter, she smiled. "Ira," she said, wrapping her into a hug. "Why didn't you say you were coming?" I wanted to surprise you guys. The daughter pulled back from the hug and tried looking over her shoulder. Is everyone already here? Of course they are. Her eyes passed over Sakura, acknowledging her existence but saying nothing. Come in, come in. They all went in. Naruto followed, glad that the door had been left open. He didn't want to see if he could phase through a closed one. The room on the other side was a living room. There was a fire crackling into the side, but lights also lit the room. Several rugs lined the stone floor, all looking well trodden on. The furniture in the room was well furnished. When he looked closely at the fur lining the seats and couch, he saw that it was real fur. The family waited inside. Ira had 2 siblings, a little brother lounging around on the couch, and an older sister waiting by their father at the table. Ira! The brother all but screamed as he vaulted off the couch and into her arms. Woof! She breathed out as she caught him. Geez, pup, you got heavy. She put him down on the ground and eyed him. Haven't you been eating just sweetbreads or something? The 5-year-old just giggled and smiled at her. His big grin and bright eyes would have made any parent worth their experience go ah. In 1.7 seconds. Hello, Ira, the sister said to her, using the same warmth their mother had. Hey there, sis, she said back, looking up from their brother. She saw the necklace around her neck and gasped. You got engaged? She nodded. We're to be married soon. That's great. She looked around at them all but saw that their gazes were on the woman who stood next to her. She followed those gazes and realized what they were seeing. Oh, right. Everyone, we know who she is, her father said. He was the only person still sitting down. Even though his tone was gruff, the look he was giving Sakura was weary and a little bit nervous. His wife was by his side. She placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. The man looked familiar to Naruto, but the blonde couldn't place him. Sakura walked over to the table, not saying a single word. Both Ira's brother and sister got out of her way as she walked past them, watching her nervously. When she reached the table, she did not sit down right away, instead choosing to stare at the old man. The tension in the air started to feel incredibly thick, almost suffocating. Lady Sakura, the man greeted her, trying to be as polite as he could. Hi Jarl, she said back, just as polite. The last time I saw you, I had my hand around your throat in front of your father. You were also a little boy. Realization hit Naruto like thunder. He was looking at the previous High Jarl's son, now all grown up. And he still remembers what happened to him, the blonde shinobi thought to himself. He had a sudden feeling that whatever was about to happen next, it wasn't going to be pretty. That was a long time ago, the High Jarl said. She nodded in agreement. It was. Her hand reached out for the nearest chair. May I sit? Yes. She sat down and they faced each other. For a moment, there was silence. Then she said, I'm sorry for what I did to you all those years ago. Naruto suddenly came awake when he was flung out of the bed and hit the wall. A surprised wah came out of his mouth as he flew. When he landed on the ground, a pained grunt came out of his lips. What in the name of the Hokage is going? Are we under attack? He tried to stand back up but the ship shook and he was sent flying back to the bed. Oh. When he finally made out of the room, fully dressed and armored, he took the elevator down to the command deck. During the ride down, he had to brace himself in order from being flung around like a rag doll inside such a small area. The Biju weren't in any better of a boat. What the hell is going on out there? Komi demanded. What's attacking us? Sun asked. I don't know, Naruto told them. Gravity pulled at him, making him slam against the back of the elevator. Oh. Kami, take it. Whatever is attacking us is strong enough to rattle the ship. You can say that again, the Nanabi declared, shaking his head to make sure that everything was still working rightly. I feel like I'm flying around and I suddenly lost control of my wings. While we just feel like we're flying with no control whatsoever, Shikaka said from where he laid prone on the ground, underneath Sun. And would you get off already, you thick monkey? He shouted at the Yambi. Naruto was glad to get out of the elevator when the doors opened. That ride was enough to make a person claustrophobic. He made his way up to the cockpit, trying to make sure he didn't go flying again. What's going on, Joker? He demanded when he reached the pilot. Are we under attack or something? If you want to call flying through 500 km/h winds under attack, then yes, we are, Joker replied, practically fighting the controls to keep the Normandy flying to their destination. As they got closer, He took a look at the readings the scanners were sending him. The news wasn't good. Oh great, just what we need now. What? There's a second ship alongside the Reaper. It's not transmitting any IFF, but the radar paints its silhouette as Geth. Oh joy, small machines crawling around in the big machine, all waiting for us, Shikaka said in an overly sarcastic voice. What's with this us stuff? His Jinchuriki asked. He had forgotten how many times he had to ask that question now. It just seemed to keep coming back up. Hey, we're in this too. You ride shotgun and provide color commentary. I guess we don't need to ask what happened to the science team, huh, Commander? Asked a rhetorical joker. The entire ship suddenly groaned, shuddered, and then bucked in the space of 3 seconds. Gravity was temporarily lost and Naruto found himself going up. If he hadn't grabbed Joker's chair while airborne, his landing might have been a lot more painful. What the hell was that? He demanded as he checked in with his footing. His pilot looked back at him. The Reaper's mass effect fields are still active, he explained, turning back to the screens. We just passed through their envelope. We're in the eye of the hurricane. Smooth sailing from here on in then, the blonde thought to himself. That is, until you reach the Reaper and see what has been going on, Sun replied. Saiken added, no pressure or anything. No, of course not, said Naruto, utterly sarcastic. Why would I feel pressure? He walked out of the cockpit, going over his options for who was following him in. He couldn't bring the whole team in, not like with the collector's ship. Joker! He called back, tell Grunt, Gurus, Thane, and Morden to get ready. Already on it, Commander, he replied. When the hatch to the research ship opened, they bared their guns. They were fully expecting a fight to go down as soon as they stepped inside. But there was no one to greet them, friend or foe. Grunt lowered his gun and frowned. Where the hell are they? He demanded, almost sounding like a child. Grunt, get that weapon back up. Naruto barked at him. I taught you better than that. The gun instantly came back up. Right, sorry. But where are they? I don't know. That was enough to make him worried. It could be a trap, Thane said quietly. Good possibility, Morden agreed, nodding his head rapidly. Naruto knew that it was probably a trap. But in spite of that, they had to keep moving. They came here to get something and that meant they had to get it. For the others it might be the Reaper IFF. But for him, it was finding Tali, getting her out of here, and figuring out what the hell happened when he was out for 2 years. Let's go, he told the team. Be careful. Exploring an abandoned area, expecting Mechanical and Nasty to jump out at any moment, Gurus said lightly. Just like old times. Gurus, reminisce later. As soon as they stepped into the actual ship, Grunt sniffed the air. He grimaced and almost stepped back. What is it, Grunt? Thane asked him. Smell bad, he answered. There's blood, but something's wrong with it. His words made them step more carefully as they went down the steps. Lab here, Morden said, looking to the left as they passed the area. Still in good order. Machine still operational. No malfunctions. As if scientists just left. Naruto looked at the lab. It was a small lab that was able to fit in a nook off the corridor. Like Morden had said, all the machines were still in working order and good order at that. But he saw the faint traces and splatters of blood. I don't think whoever attacked the scientists were interested in their equipment. Hey, we got a work log over here, Gurus noted, seeing one of the computers had a video library opened and waiting to be played. Hang on. He walked over to hit and pressed the play button. A video of a man in an Akatsuki uniform appeared on screen. The airlock has been installed at the far end of the hold section, he reported in an official tone. We have begun pressurization for Shirtsleeve's work. He paused and looked off to the side, as if he was double-checking to see if anyone was there. He looked back and continued to report. The crew is edgy. I reassure them it is mere nerves. A superstition reaction to what this hulk represents, the corpse of a vast, ancient life form. Privately, I can't deny the atmosphere. The angles of the walls seem to press down on you. I find myself clenching my teeth. The video stopped, and they stared at the screen. That's it? Grunt demanded. That's enough for me, Gurus declared. He was already getting a bad feeling about this. They moved up, going for the airlock. As they reached it, they found another console with a video log waiting to be played. Thane reached out and played it. We finished cataloging specimens A203 to B016, the scientist on the screen reported. No evidence of active nanotechnology noted. Dr. Chandana believes they would have decayed over the last 37 million years. There's not enough data to support his claim. He asserts that the truth is patently obvious. I am concerned. Chandana has been staring at the samples for hours. He says he's listening to them. Oh great, Sun declared. The people went crazy. That might be putting it more delicately than needed, Komiai replied. I think that they went about 5 steps past crazy. We won't know until we go further in, Naruto said. He signaled the team to head for the airlock, on their right. As they reached the hatch and it opened, everything around suddenly shook. They stumbled, almost losing their balance. As they got it back, Joker came onto the comm Normandy to show a party. We're here, Joker, Naruto replied, his fingers on the comm. What was that? The Reaper put up kinetic barriers. I don't think we can get through from our side. Can I state the obvious? Geras asked. No, said 4 other voices. He shrugged. I'm going to do it anyway. We're trapped. Naruto gave him a look, but there was nothing to do about it now. He was right. They were trapped. Now they had to figure out a way to get out of the trap. Ideas, anyone? He asked, looking at the team. Bring down generators from inside, Morden offered. Quickest way out. Grunt snorted. Except we have no idea where they are, he told the doctor. He looked at the Krogan like a teacher would look at a student before lecturing him. Of course we haven't yet to move from this location. Once movement in progress, should be simple to find generators. Joker, you catch all that? Naruto asked his pilot. I did. I'm turning it over to EDI. At the moment of activation, I detected a heat spike in what is likely the Rex Mass Effect core, the AI explained, sending the coordinates now. His screen dinged as the coordinates arrived. Yeah, got them, he said back. Be advised, this core is also maintaining the Reaper's altitude. Meaning once the barriers are down, we're in for a lot of trouble? Geras couldn't help but chuckle at the prospect. Yeah, that sounds about right. Like I said, good times, he proclaimed. I get the picture, Joker said shortly, mostly at the Turian. They could hear the nerves beneath his snippy sarcasm. I have faith that you will get us out of here, Joker, Thane said to the pilot. I have heard that you are one of the best pilots in the Alliance. If there is anyone who will be able to get us out of the Reaper when the barriers are down, it will be you. There was a moment of silence between the teammates. They all looked at each other, wondering what Joker would say back, if he was going to say anything. Well, thanks, he finally replied, sounding a bit flustered. Has anyone actually praised him for his skills or said that they trust him? Gyuki asked. Kurama shook his head. No, we've just taken him for granted. Remind me to thank him when we get out of here, Naruto remarked. Thane's not wrong, Joker, he said into the comm. We all know that you'll be able to bring us home. All right then, Commander, Joker said, his old confidence seeping back into his voice. I'll see you back on the ship. You'd better make sure that you get there. Just make sure that you're there with the door. He pulled his fingers away from the comm and looked at the others there. All right, we don't have much of a choice here. We keep going. If we find any survivors, we take them with us. For though I have seen what lies inside the maw of the monster, I shall walk through its teeth and into the darkness beyond, Thane said, almost to himself, as the hatch finally opened. Geras looked at him in surprise. You read the plays of Brian Fimal? Yes. Huh. He was generally surprised as they stepped through the hatch. Never would have pegged you as the kind of guy who would read epic plays. Actually, I prefer to watch them. Much easier to understand that way, the Drell explained. Good point. It's still surprising. Surprising that I would read and watch such works? Asked Thane with a dry tone, as dry as a Drell could manage. Geras shook his head. Surprising that you would read at all, he replied. People, focus, Naruto said shortly. Can we worry about what Thane reads later? I think you should care about this, Commander. After all, Brian Fimal is constantly tied with Jeshiro Watanabe as the greatest human writer to have ever lived. And I should care about that. Why? Watanabe responsible for many works on shinobi, Morden explained. Most famous works are focused on first generation of Sannin, Shinobi World Wars, and Konoha 12. If it had been any other time, the blonde might have stopped and wanted to know more, just to see what it was they were talking about. But they were on the verge of going inside a dead Reaper. It wasn't the time for that. Like I said, focus on it later. When they stepped through the hatch, the first thing that they saw was the trails of blood smeared across the walkway, and the bodies it came from. What a mess, Grunt noted. Anyone else hungry? Gurus looked at the young Krogan in exasperation. How can you think of food at a time like this? I can't help it. The smell reminded me of meat. Naruto was more focused on the hull of the Reaper in front of him. It was different from the research ship they had come from. The lead Akatsuki doctor wasn't wrong when he said that the walls felt like they were pressing down. He felt more like he was traversing the innards of a creature than a ship. The air didn't help either. As soon as they had walked in, the temperature had to have dropped about 15 degrees. If he wasn't shivering, the very least he would have seen if his helmet was down was his breath misting as it breathed out. There was a sense he couldn't shake, a sense of something very wrong waiting for them. There was another computer at the walkway rail with another video log wanting to be played. The blonde didn't waste any time starting it while the team gathered round. The video showed two scientists talking to each other. You're married? The one on the left said in surprise. You never mentioned that. Katie had anger management issues, the scientist on the right explained. When my brother got married, the best man tried to hit on her. She kicked him down the church steps. He chuckled a little at those words, clearly finding it to be a good memory. But the other scientist looked shocked. WH? Katie's my wife. He frowned, clearly trying to find a good reason as why he just something he should know. I must have told you the story. The right scientist frowned too. No. I know my wife. I remember, that day was the only time I saw her wear stockings. Yeah, agreed the left. The kind with seams up the back. That's what I remember too. They both managed to look frustrated and scared at the same time. What the hell is this? Demanded the right. How can we remember the same thing? The video froze and then vanished. Naruto looked at the other. Well? He asked. What do you think? Reaper affecting mental integrity of scientists, Morden said. Known ability. Should tread lightly while here. They could only do that when they were alive, Gurus protested. The Solarian looked over at him. Hypothesis never proven. Ability could still be functional after death. But what's the point of making them slaves to a dead Reaper? Grunt asked. He didn't see the logic, or even the point of it. Thane had been quiet, thinking over all the information that was given. But when the Krogan asked that question, he already knew the answer. This is a dead Reaper. There are many more alive. His words sent a chill up all their spines and created dark, foreboding thoughts in their minds. If the scientists had been indoctrinated here, would they try to find a way to contact the other Reapers? Would they just settle for the collectors? What would be the point? Naruto stopped those questions from overwhelming his head. The odds that they would be answered if they kept going were good. Come on, he told the team, turning away from the computer to where the walkway went on. They left the computer behind, but the questions stayed with them. As the walkway reached a small platform filled with equipment crates, Naruto saw something move out of the corner of his eye. He turned with his guns raised, but the zombie lying in wait pounced at him. Whoa! He cried out, trying to flinch away. The zombie latched onto him, pushing him down to the ground. But that was its undoing. As soon as Naruto's back hit the ground, he swung his legs up, catching the zombie in the stomach, and pushed it off. The momentum brought him into a full back roll, coming back to his feet, and the zombie flying over the edge of the walkway. It sailed the air until it struck the wall with an almost sickening thud. Nice, Grunt told his sensei. Thank you, he replied. He was proud of that move. It had been only instinct and reflex. Save the preening for later, Kurama told him shortly. You've got more coming at you. He turned and saw more of the zombies coming at them in their shambling pace. The rest of the team saw them too. They all raised their guns and started shooting. The hail of bullets first halted the zombies and then quickly tore them to shreds. When the last one finally went down, they lowered the guns. Thanks for the warning, Naruto told the fox. He said nothing back, only flicked his tails as if to wave it off. I had wondered if the technology for making husks came from the Geth or the Reapers, Gurus remarked, nudging one of the corpses with his foot. It didn't move in response, and he was glad for it. Is that what we're calling them now? Naruto asked him. Husks? That's what they've been called since the first appearance, Commander. He shrugged his shoulders. I've just been going with zombies. Does it really matter what they're called? Grunt asked. He was still looking around, trying to see if there was more danger. It doesn't, his teacher agreed. Let's move. They continued down the walkway, but now they walked even more cautiously. They kept watch on everything, waiting to see if there was another danger that was waiting for them. It was because of that vigilance that when Gurus felt a cold hand on his leg, he didn't freak out when he saw the husk coming up from underneath the walkway. He simply shot the head off and shouted, "They're coming from below." His cry was like a signal to the rest of the husks because that was when they all started crawling up from below. Naruto fired off a few rounds, but the platform they had walked down to felt too small for him. The husks needed to be dealt with quickly. Bashing them wouldn't do much good, so cutting would have to be the method. He holstered the guns and kicked a zombie down in the same motion. "If you've got something sharp, pull it out," he told the others while pulling out 2 kunai and smashing the zombie's face in with a stomp. Both Thane and Gurus followed his example, the Drell pulling out a small blade from his leg and the Turian whipping out a combat knife from his side. The 3 of them attacked the zombies while Grunt and Morden provided the cover fire. Naruto kept his kunai in reverse grip, adding to the stabbing power. The blades went through the zombies' heads with each swing. He added futon chakra to their edges to make things easier. He must have been broken enough of the inhibitors to not feel the drain on his chakra with this little move. But he was going to have to be a little careful. A sudden shockwave knocked him to his knees. The zombies tried to press him down with their massed weight, but he fought back up and out. "What was that?" he called out, looking around to see where the others were at. Morden was back to back with Grunt. They were a few steps away from, but it felt more like yards. "Red husk," Morden replied. "Exploded when fired upon. Must be new strand of husk. Actually interesting. Be impressed later," Grunt told him. Naruto turned his attention back to his own fight. The husks were trying to hold him down again. He stabbed and sliced his way to get a little breathing room. But then he saw something different at the edge of the group. It was one of the red zombies, trying to push its way through to him. "I've got a red one over here," he called out. It didn't seem like that no one heard him. He would have to do something by himself. A kunai to the head would be the best solution here. He did that with the left kunai. When it was buried up to the pommel ring, the zombie exploded. It took most of the zombies with it, and he fell to the ground again. He didn't know that if it was the amount of zombies between him and the red or if his shields were that good, but they were only half depleted from that explosion. He pulled out another kunai and fought back up again. He hoped that he wouldn't go down for a third time. But the fight was winding down. When he killed the remaining zombies around him and turned to see if the others needed his help, he saw that they didn't. Well, Gurus said once he was sure the last one was dead, that was distracting. Understatement, both Grunt and Morden said at the same time. They looked at each other. Grunt began to chuckle and Morden did too. It would have been odd to any other person, a Krogan and a Solarian finding a moment to laugh about something in common. Naruto just took it to be a good sign of things that could happen. "Look," Thane said, looking ahead at where another computer waited. It was off to the side and on a crate. There was some blood on it, but only tiny rivulets. Some of them wondered how it managed to survive the explosions. But they were more interested in what the video had to offer. Third day with this headache, the Akatsuki scientist in the video grumbled while he worked at his station. "You'd think that Chandana would let me have a few hours off." He looked up and flinched away. "God damn!" he suddenly swore. Another scientist was working at his own station. He was nodding absently, obviously not paying attention. But then he heard the shout. "What?" he asked, whipping his head around to see what the problem. "That thing that gray thing. It disappeared when I looked straight at it. Came out of the damn wall. Where we took off that panel." He looked at the first scientist, and then at the panel. "I didn't see anything. You should lie down. I'm telling you, this ship isn't dead. It knows that we're inside it. Calm down. Now I'm getting a headache." "This does not bode well," Thane said as the video went dark and vanished. It went without saying that he was onto something. That uneasy feeling that was riding on their backs seemed to grow bigger after that little video. But even if that feeling was getting bigger, they had to press onwards. The walkway went up another ramp and straight ahead for a few yards before turning to the left. As they approached the turn, they heard gunshots ring out. Gurus recognized the solitary barks of the shots. "Sniper!" he warned the others. They all went still, eyeing the turn. The shots rang out a few more times before finally going quiet. They waited for a couple of seconds, each one feeling longer than they should. "Move up," Naruto told the team. They approached the turn more carefully than they had been before. They stopped at the edge, mentally preparing themselves for whatever was on the other side. But when Naruto stepped out of cover with his guns raised, he saw only dead zombies. Geras was right behind. He surveyed the area with the scope on his rifle. "I don't see the sniper," he said after a long moment. "I think he's gone." "Odd," Morden remarked as he joined them and saw the dead husks on the ground. Thane looked at the husks too. Whoever had shot them was methodical, precise. They were clearly skilled in weaponry. The question of who it was still remained. "Who was it?" he asked. "A survivor of the science team, perhaps?" "Don't know, don't care," Grunt said to them all, pushing past them. "Let's just get moving." He threw the small entranceway and down onto a long platform. When they were all down on the platform was when the zombies started crawling up from beneath. "Not these guys again," Geras said in a half-complaining voice, even as he started shooting. "So, do you think you have enough room to work with here?" Kurama asked his Jinchuriki. "I can hear the sarcasm, Fox, and I don't need it right now," Naruto replied as he fired at one of the zombies, winging it in the shoulder. As a matter of fact, there was enough room to work with on the platform. But the zombies were rapidly taking up space. "Numbers indicate higher quantity," Morden told them all in warning. A husk latched onto his arm and he promptly bashed its face in with the butt of his shotgun. "Huh?" asked Grunt. "More of them," Thane told the Krogan while he delivered a devastating kick to a husk's neck, snapping it clean. "Why didn't he just say that? Worry about it later, focus on the fight." Grunt knew that. He didn't need someone to tell him the obvious. He continued to mow down the husks that were trying to engulf them. His machine gun rattled in his hands as he moved it back and forth, but he refused to let it out of his hands. They were falling like mown grass to his gun, and he was enjoying the sight. But while the Krogan was enjoying the battle, the Turian found himself being backed up more and more. The husks were trying to swarm him over, preventing him from properly using his sniper rifle. He had to move back to get a good aim, but they would follow him. "If I didn't know any better, I would think that they had some intelligence," he silently remarked. "Guys, a little help here please." Naruto looked back and saw that Geras was farthest from the team. "How the hell did you get back there?" he shouted over the moaning and groaning of the zombies. "They pushed me away." He was able to put enough space between the husks to switch out the sniper rifle for the shotgun. He started blasting his way back to the others, but the husks were still threatening to swarm him over. The shinobi turned back towards him and started fighting his way through the zombies. Thane joined him and together, they cut a path through the dead. While he swung his gun's hilts into the zombies' skulls, Naruto also took a moment in motion to observe Thane. The drill was methodical and energy-saving in his fighting. He took the most effective way to take down an enemy and kept moving in a flowing continuance. It was actually something to watch because it was an impressive display. "Could you be impressed later?" Koko asked him. "You are in the middle of a fight." "I know that." He clobbered a husk down and shot another through the head. "Remind me to spar with him later." The two of them made it through to Geras swiftly. "Nice of you to join, Commander," the Turian said. "Hi to you too, Geras," he replied before taking a quick look at the situation. The zombies were getting smaller in number, but they were still enough to be a problem. They were going to need to fight their way back through to Grunt and Morden. An idea came to him, something that made him check the Churka clips he had. There were only 2 right-on clips, one of each of the guns. "Thane, here," he told the Drell, tossing him one of the clips while he put the other in his right gun. The Drell snatched the clip out of the air and injected it into his gun smoothly. Together the two of them started shooting through the enemy. The clips did what Naruto had hoped they would do. No matter what part of the body the zombies were hit with, they would go into shock and fall to the ground dead. They were made short work of that, and the 3 of them were able to get back to Grunt and Morden. Even after that, the fight didn't last long. As Naruto watched the last zombie fall to the ground and not get back up, he breathed out in relief. "Glad that idea worked." "What idea?" Morden asked, looking at him with a quizzical look. "Add more electricity, the zombies will short-circuit," he explained. "Hence, the right-on clips." Good idea. "Do we have more of the clips?" Geras asked. He knew that he hadn't grabbed any chakra clips before getting in here. They all shared an expectant look with each other, but there were no more clips to be had. Note to self, bring more right-on clips when dealing with Reapers, Naruto said to himself. It was the kind of advice that was best heard before heading into the Reaper. There was a computer off to the side with a video log waiting for them. Just how many of these things are there? Grunt demanded when he saw it. Naruto ignored his students' grumbling as he played the log. Another Akatsuki scientist appeared on the screen, looking haggard. He kept looking around, like he was trying to make sure that he was alone. Chandana said the ship was dead. We trusted him. He was right. But even a dead god can dream, he said, almost rambling. Well, that's new, Isabu remarked. SSH. The rest of the Biju told him. A god, a real god, is a verb. Not some old man with magic powers, the scientist continued. It's a force. It warps reality just by being there. It doesn't have to want to. It doesn't have to think about it. It just does. That's what Chandana didn't get. Not until it was too late. The god's mind is gone, but it still dreams. He knows now. He's tuned in on our dreams. If I close my eyes, I can feel him. I can feel every one of us. The video vanished and they stood there, staring at the computer. This does not bode well, Morden stated. Psychosis showing with each human. Getting worse each time video is opened. Talk about stating the fucking obvious, Grunt told him. Naruto turned back around to look at them all. He saw only 3 of them standing behind him. As he craned his head to find Gurus, he found the Turian standing at the railing, looking out at something. Gurus? He called out. There wasn't a reply, so he went over. Gurus, what's the... He trailed off as he realized what the problem was. On the other side of the rail was open space before dropping down to a lower platform. But it was stabbed through the platform that raised up high enough for them to see easily. It was a cluster of spikes, arrayed in a way that almost made them look like a flower blossoming. The lower spikes were empty, but the higher ones each had a human impaled through them. All they had to do was look at the clothes to realize that they were a part of the Akatsuki team sent here. Whoa, Saiken said. I haven't seen anything like this since that serial killer shinobi who fancied himself an artist. You mean the one with the first Akatsuki? Deidara? Asked Kuko. Nope, this guy was operating during the time of the Shodan Mizukage. My Jinchuriki at the time had been sent after him. We saw a lot of his handiwork, and it was never pretty. The others joined Naruto and Gurus at the rail. As soon as Morden saw the impaled humans, his hands clenched and his face morphed into something murderous. Wasteful, he declared, unnecessary. No need to disgrace bodies after death. Maybe they were trying to make a point, Grunt suggested. Point not needed. It was savage, brutal, and completely unneeded. Gurus still hadn't said anything, and it was making Naruto worried. Gurus, you good? He asked. The Turian didn't reply to that. He just kept looking at the display. We've seen these before, Commander. Dragon's teeth, your people call them. The Geth used them on Eden Prime. I remember. It had been a shock seeing them the first time, even more so when they retracted and lowered the impaled to the ground. It would seem that the Reapers do indeed share tech with the Geth, Thane said quietly, his voice almost whispering over their heads. He looked at the display until his soul told him to look away. When he did, he took in the room and realized something that was even more disturbing. There was an order and form to the place, one that he hadn't seen until now. It was big and airy, with a form of going straight from the entrance to the railing. But when he looked at the railing, another word came to mind, altar. Guys, I don't think we're in just any kind of room. Grunt looked at his sensei. When he used that kind of voice, it was the time to pay attention. What are you saying, sensei? I think they turned this place into an area of worship. And I think that we're currently standing at the altar. They all turned and looked. They saw the same thing that he did, and a chill crawled up their spines and around their necks like a noose. Gurus looked back at the altar, taking in the new information it showed him. It was even more sickening than before. Bile threatened to rise up from his throat, but he swallowed it and pressed on. It does look like that, but why would they want this to happen? He asked. The logs, Morden said. Research team growing gradually unstable. Becoming more prone to seeing or hearing things not necessarily there. Most likely becoming indoctrinated. When he heard that proclamation, Naruto couldn't help but think about Saren and what happened to him, especially towards the end. It still wasn't a pleasant memory. We have to keep moving, he told the team. We need to make sure that this doesn't happen to any other humans. He lifted his gun and opened fire. No one said anything as the shinobi shot a hole through the heads of the impaled. When he was done, he turned and walked away. And why did you do that? Shikaka asked him as the team followed him. So they won't rise up, he replied. They deserve the peace of death. They found the way out of the room led through another airlock that had been off to the side. As the hatch closed behind them, a voice started speaking above their heads. Please stand by. Equalizing pressure with exterior conditions. Remember, safety is everyone's concern. We have gone 5 days without a workplace death. If they hadn't just seen what could pass as a place of worship, odds were that one of them would have made a crack about the 5 days. But they had seen the altar, and they knew why it had lasted 5 days. The question on their minds now was how long the record had been before everyone had gone missing. When the hatch in front of them opened, they were all too glad to step out. The platform was anchored to the side of the Reaper. It was a good thing because the first thing that they saw and heard was the storm going on outside of the ship. I would not want to get sucked into that mess, Gurus declared as he stared through the large rending hole in front of him. So don't focus on it, Grunt told him. He looked at the Krogan despairingly. That's easier said than done. Says you, he replied. It was quite easy. All he would have to do was not look at it, and not pay attention to it. What else was there? Naruto said to them both, move up. We've got ground to cover. He was looking at a walking that stretched out farther than he could see. Although that might be because the Akatsuki team had built it around the Reaper, so there were parts of it that obscured his vision. What was also obscuring his vision was the amount of cargo boxes and explosives the Akatsuki had placed along the walkway. The path itself also went up and down flights of stairs. They were in for a bit of walk, and he had no doubt that they were going to be. Don't finish that train of thought. Komiai shouted at him. You're going to jinx yourself. Commander, behind you! Shouted Thane in warning. Naruto spun around and saw a zombie literally inches away from his visor. Too late, said Isabu. Not now, he told the turtle. He tried to raise the guns to shoot, but it was too damn close. His movements were blocked. He saw other zombies rise up behind the others. Suddenly there was a hole in the zombie's head. It jerked back as they heard the shot. 4 more shots rang out, and the remaining zombies fell back down to the ground. Sniper! Shouted Gurus as they spun around to see who the shooter was. The sight of their answer made them all stop and stare. The sniper was a Geth, kneeling down against the rail of a balcony further down the walkway. It stared at them as it stood up, saying nothing. It had a battered casing, with multiple scars crisscrossing it. Its head had several flaps around the frame, moving up and down. It was almost as if the flaps were trying to form expressions. There was even a hole on its right side, showing the innards of a Geth. Strangely enough, there was a ragged remain of a sleeve tied around its forearm that fell to its wrist. There was something a little familiar about that sleeve, but Naruto couldn't place it. The Geth moved its head ever so carefully, taking in each of them. Grunt felt challenged and threatened. He raised his gun and took aim. Grunt, don't, Naruto told his student. It's a Geth, he said. It's going to attack us. Then why hasn't it? He kept his gaze on the Geth, waiting to see what it would do. The Geth turned its head to him, and it felt like it was returning his look. Uzumaki Sennin, it spoke, its voice sounding somewhat garbled, like it was coming through a radio with a spotty reception. But that wasn't what the team was focusing on. They found the fact that the Geth had actually spoken to be something much more interesting, not to mention shocking. They were trying to come to terms with that when they saw something even more surprising. Naruto watched Tali come up from behind the Geth, but she didn't try to shoot it. Instead, she came to stand by its side. What the? She's not shooting it? Naruto silently asked. There had been a time when if she had seen a Geth, she would have shot it, no questions asked. But her gun wasn't even drawn. She looked at them all too. Both Gurus and Naruto saw how her eyes widened slightly when she saw them, but that was all they did. We need to go, she told the Geth. I've gotten the door open. Naruto and Gurus shared a look of utter disbelief. They shared the same thought, one that didn't seem possible until now. Talizora herself was working with a Geth willingly? Just what the hell is going on here? Naruto demanded. That is a question you should probably ask her, Saiken suggested. And considering she's about to walk away. Kurama left the words hanging. Tali was walking away with the Geth. He couldn't let that happen. He needed answers. Tali, get back here, now! He shouted out. She paused for a moment but did not look back. She kept walking until she was out of sight. Shikaku took that moment to open his mouth. Well, don't say it, his Jinchuriki cut him off. You don't even know what I was going to say. I don't care. I don't need to hear you say it. Well, that just happened, Grunt declared. Naruto glared inwardly at Shikaku. I wasn't going to say that, the Tanuki protested. At that point, the blonde did not care. Come on, he told the others. We're going after them. They started down the walkway, their pace quick. Since when do Geth operate alone? Gurus asked. They get smarter the more of them there are. Technically speaking, not working alone, Morden pointed out. Not what I'm talking about, Morden, the Turian told him. There's only one Geth here. That's never happened before. Quarians have never worked with Geth before. Something is different. Thane kept his silence. Naruto fell to his side and asked a question quietly. Did you know? No, he answered. When I worked with you, it was alone. Grunt kept his eyes forward while the others were talking. We've got husks in front of us, he announced as he watched the creatures crawl up onto the walkway. The others turned their attention back to the walkway. There were indeed husks in front of them, and they were growing with each passing second. Shit, Gurus muttered as he looked at the amount of them. He looked at Naruto and asked, Speed run? Speed run, he confirmed with a nod, flipping his guns around to hold them by the barrel. They all took off at a dead sprint with Grunt at the forefront. The zombies tried to swarm in response, but they didn't have the advantage. When they started to get the advantage in numbers, they would get shot down. The team got some reprieve whenever they went up or down a ramp, but the problem came back more so when they reached the end and there was more room for the husks. Getting confined, Morden told them all as they passed by a column, funneling the husks to either behind or in front of them. But the space between them also got confined, to the point of being almost squished. We're all getting confined, Thane told the Solarian. He elbowed a husk hard enough to snap its neck. It didn't fall down to the ground as much as it was trampled by their feet. If it hadn't been dead when getting the neck snapped, it was now. I see the exit, Gurus said. It was down a ramp to the left. Unfortunately, the exit would lead them back into the ship. Naruto saw the same thing the Turian did. There seemed to be a lot of things that needed to be done, but the one thing that remained paramount was the fact that they would have to get off the ship. Going back into the ship was not the best of ideas if they wanted to leave. But they were still hampered by the fields keeping them in. How the hell are we going to get off this dead metal squid? He demanded as he kneed a zombie hard and sent it flying with a kick. The Mass Effect core, Morden told him reprovingly. Already know this. Right, sorry, he replied absently. He was too busy bashing a zombie off the railing to worry about it. Oh fuck, Gurus swore. What? Grunt demanded. It was never good when someone said that in the middle of a firefight. He pointed with his gun at one of the husks. Look at that one. It looks like it was trying to bulk up. He looked at the husk. The Turian wasn't wrong when he said it did look like it had tried to put on muscle. The muscle in question was ridiculously overdone. They bulged up to be the same size of his head but were only on one side of the husk. Still, it was heading towards them with what could have been called a determined shambling pace. So, he leveled his gun at it and squeezed the trigger. Within half a minute of a constant barrage, the bulked-up husk was mincemeat on the floor. Dead now, Grunt proclaimed. Very nice, Naruto replied. But push it forward. We're almost there. The fight down the ramp to the hatch seemed like seconds stretching into minutes. The husks were almost desperate-like in their attempts to stop them from reaching the exit. Morden almost stumbled thanks to a husk grabbing his leg with iron-clamp tenacity. He remained afoot thanks to Grunt, who reached out and grabbed him by the shoulder. They were the last two through the hatch, it closing a few inches from their hides. From the other side, they could hear the husks trying to get through to no avail. Naruto took that moment for a breather. It was always important to get the breath back after a speed run, otherwise he would be weakened and tired. If he got to that, there was a good chance that he would end up dead. Good run? Kurama asked lightly. Shut up, he replied. Ah, said Morden. Found it. The blonde looked up from his knees at him. The Solarian was already moving around and he stood at a computer in the hatch, long fingers typing fast on it, and his Omni tool. Found what? Naruto asked him. Reaper IFF, he replied. His answer got the attention of them all. They would have crowded around him if the hatch had been big enough to allow that. So instead only Geras and Naruto got in close. So the Akatsuki team did recover it, Geras said. He frowned in confusion. But where are they now? I don't think that's a question that should be answered, Thane told him. Not when the answer is obvious or one that we don't want to know. The Drell had a point. Even though they were trying to find survivors, it was becoming more and more unlikely that they would find one. Damn it, Naruto swore inwardly at the prospect of knowing they were dead. Still, there was nothing they could do about it. We keep moving forward, he told the others. But when they approached the hatch and it opened, there was a force field blocking their way. Now that's just rude, Grunt proclaimed. Don't look at the force field, Thane told him, look beyond it. If he hadn't been taught and still learned from Naruto, he would have thought that the Drell was being a mystic sprouting mumbo-jumbo. But he had learned from the shinobi, and he knew that Thane was being literal. He looked past the force field and saw that same Geth from before working at a console. Ahead of the Geth and higher up in the air was a large glowing blue orb encased in metal, which he instantly recognized as the Mass Effect core. What he's doing? Naruto asked. Whatever it was important enough for the Geth to protect it from the zombies that were coming after him. But there was another question he had. Where was Tali? Morden took a closer look and saw that the console was in direct contact with the core. Must be working on keeping core open and vulnerable, he told the others. If kept in vulnerable position, core can be fired upon, destroyed. That's great. But we can't do anything about that since we're stuck in here, Grunt reminded him. The force field suddenly shut down, disappearing beneath their feet. You were saying? He asked the Krogan. Don't start, he warned. Who did that anyway? Probably the Geth, Naruto suggested offhandedly. Worry about it later. We need to get in there. He raised his guns and stepped inside with the others following him in. The Geth probably thought that its job was done. It turned around, but one of the zombies got close enough to take a swing at it. The dead hand connected and the Geth went down to the ground. It didn't move and the zombies swarmed up around it. Normally, Naruto wouldn't have cared if a Geth was swarmed over by zombies. But this Geth had known his name and was with Tali. That was enough for him to tell the others, get in there and get it out. No one protested his order. Morden took the lead alongside Grunt. While the Krogan laid down the heavier firepower, the Solarian got in close with the shotgun and made the husk scatter. A few stubborn ones tried to claw at the Geth, but since their focus was on it, and not them, they were quickly destroyed. Morden reached the Geth and quickly looked it over. Still in one piece, he announced, relatively speaking. Great, said Geras. How about we focus less on him and more on the core? The thing was still opened and glowing, almost invitingly so. Good idea, Grunt agreed, already hefting his machine gun to point at the core. Once he was certain of the aim, he squeezed the trigger and let it rip. Geras joined him with the sniper rifle, keeping the core lined up in his sights and taking shot after shot. Thane pulled out the grenade launcher from his rack and fired it with a steady beat. Where did you get that? Geras asked him as they kept shooting. I borrowed it from Quan Misli, he replied. Since she was not coming, it was pointless for it to be lying around. That made sense, and he was satisfied. Just when I thought we should have brought Eric and his mortar. Commander, Morden said to Naruto while they stayed to the sides. He was looking over the railing to the lower platform on the left. Naruto was watching the lower platform to the right. Yeah? He said, keeping his eyes watching so they wouldn't get caught off guard. Sequarian ally of Geth coming to location. Permission to shoot? No! He snapped out before the Solarian went through with it either way. He turned around and saw Tali coming up to them. She was running as fast as she could and talking too. We've got a problem, she shouted up towards them. I lost the detonation pack, so we're going to have to. She slowed down as she reached the top of the ramp, realizing who it was that was there. Improvise. Tali, Naruto said in short greeting. Looking for this? He looked down at the still Geth. She looked at it, and then at him. I was. Why is detonation pack needed? Morden asked. He had his shotgun out and pointed at the Geth. It would be better to take out it before her. They could reason with her. She looked at him. To destroy the Mass Effect core, she explained. That was why we came in the first place. She looked past them both at the shooting group. What are they doing? Destroying the core, Naruto replied. She didn't say anything for a long second. Then she finally said, well, that's one way to do it. So glad you approve. Not the time for sarcasm, Naruto, Gyuki rebuked him. Grunt suddenly roared in frustration. No, no, no! He shouted, squeezing down harder on his trigger. Naruto was already spinning around when he heard the roar. What is it? He demanded. The fucking thing is closing, his student answered. He saw metal plating slowly closing in front of the core, like lids covering an eye. Shit! Why the hell is this happening? Tali demanded. She pushed past both Naruto and Morden and then the others, reaching the computer. Her Omni tool lit up as she quickly started typing. After a few seconds, she let out a string of swearing that would have impressed sailors. Why didn't you finish the code, you bosh-tet piece of machine? She demanded aloud. No one answered that question, although those who could look down at the Geth did. The shielding on the core started to peel back, revealing it once more. Tali, whatever it is you're doing, keep doing it, Gurus told her as he went back to shooting. I'll have to do, she replied, still typing away furiously. Right now, the only thing that is keeping this core exposed is me. Commander, husks inbound on the left side, Morden announced, lifting his shotgun into shooting position. Naruto turned and saw the zombies coming up the platform. He turned around and saw that they were coming up the right side too. Morden, we're running protection, he told the Solarian as he lifted his warhawks and started shooting the zombies. Certainly obvious, he replied as he opened fire on his side. But the odds were starting to quickly go against them. Each side of the walkway had 2 ramps that came from the platforms, and the zombies were making good use of them both to swarm up to their target. Naruto created a few clones to make the ramps choke points. They were able to stem the tide, but the tide was still coming. Morden kept moving back and forth rapidly between the ramps, firing all the time. The original Naruto chose to stay exactly in the center, and keep a gun pointing at each of the ramp. If he hadn't learned how to divide his attention during the war, he probably would have gotten dizzy from watching 2 ramps at the same time. He kept his fire up, trying to make sure that he didn't shoot one of his own clones. How we doing? He asked the others. It's still open, Thane replied, taking the moment to reload the grenade launcher. And the core? He asked. I'm getting reports that it is under damage and needs to be contained, Tali reported. Keep it up. Gladly, said Grunt, keeping his stream of fire going steady. Because of the constant barrage of fire, it didn't take long for the core to explode. When it exploded, the zombies didn't have any driving them and they fell to the ground dead. The ship itself began to rumble and shake. In the distance, they could hear explosions going off. The Reaper was being destroyed and they were still inside. It meant one thing for them all. Time to go, announced Naruto. Wait! Tali cried as they all started to leave. She stood over the Geth and was trying to pick it up. Help me with him. Him? The blonde thought in disbelief. He was having more and more of a hard time believing that this was the same Tali he had known when she served with him. Leave it, Gurus told her. We have enough trouble. She looked up at him, and they could all see the anger and stubbornness shining through her eyes. I am not leaving him behind. The husks are getting back up, Thane announced as he stomped down on one that was a little too close. He and Grunt did their best to keep the husks down, but more and more getting the spark of life back, standing back up to attack again. Naruto looked at the husks and then at the Geth on the ground. They had to go now, but there was a burning question inside of him. It could be subdued by getting a small answer from Tali, and if they left the Geth here, it might never be sated. He walked over to them both and knelt down on the other side. Does this have something to do with my lost memories? He asked her. And why you were working with me then? Her glowing eyes widened behind her mask. She didn't know that he was aware of that. Her surprise didn't last long, and she nodded. Yes, it does. That was enough for him. He grabbed the Geth's arm and looped it around his neck. Tali did the same on her side. On 3, he told her, 1, 2, 3. They stood up, holding the Geth between them. Gurus looked back at them. He saw the Geth held up by them. While he did look surprised at first, he quickly lost it. You know the risk, he told Naruto. That's all I'm going to say. Noted, the shinobi replied. But let's be more concerned about getting out of here alive. As he pulled the Geth back to the hatch, his eyes fell on the cloth tied around its arm. It seemed so familiar, but he didn't know from where. Then he saw a faded orange color to it, and it struck him. That wasn't just any piece of clothing. That was something that used to belong to him. That had been a part of the shirt he picked out on Thesha. Just what the bloody hell is going on here? Do you really want one of us to answer that? Kurama asked him. No. It was a rhetorical question. Making sure, the fox replied offhandedly. It's becoming so that I can't really tell if you're serious or not. Kurama, don't torment him, Matatabi chastised him. Naruto chose to ignore his tenets. Instead, he reached for his calm joker. Get that ship over to our location, now. Already on it, Commander, Joker replied. It was proven true when they stepped out of the airlock and saw the ship hovering outside the large tear. Location, the Normandy, they had made out all right, but it had been close at the end. While Joker flew the Normandy away from the now-destroyed Reaper, Jacob and Miranda discussed what to do with the Geth they had brought with them. But Naruto overrode both their ideas and their objections. He wanted to know more about what the hell was going on. It was why he was currently standing in the AI core, looking at the inactive Geth from beyond a shield. The Geth didn't look dangerous as it lay on the shelf, but he wasn't going to be too careful. Eddie? He said. I have isolated our systems and erected additional firewalls, the AI told him. I am prepared to resist any hacking attempt. All right then, boot it up. Commander, I do not believe that you should be alone in the room with this Geth. If her orb was there, he would have looked at it. Still, her question was not something he would have expected from her. Are you concerned for my well-being, EDI? Yes, Commander, she replied instantly. Don't worry, I'll be fine. You dismissed the guard and had me block all video and audio in the room. That's because I want to keep this conversation between us. Now boot it up. He didn't get a reply, but the Geth was suddenly engulfing in electricity. The currents danced briefly across the metal plating and the light on its headpiece turned on. It slowly sat up and stood up just as slowly, as if to check that it could still move around. When it was standing, it came to the edge of the shield and stood there, waiting. That's a little creepy, Isaba said as he watched the Geth just stand there. Naruto felt the same way, but now wasn't the time for him to lose his spine. You can understand me, right? He asked the Geth. Yes, it replied. If I have the shield taken down, are you going to attack? No. He didn't bring down the shield, not yet. He was still unsure of the Geth. On the Reaper, you recognized me. You called me by my clan name and a title I haven't heard since before I was sealed. Do you know me? Yes. You are Naruto Uzumaki. Sannin. Jinchuriki. Jonin. Alliance. Human. Fought heretics. Kidnapped by tribe. Rediscovered on the old machine. He heard a list of what he was and had done. But it was the last two words that got his attention. You're talking about the Reaper. Reaper. A superstitious title originating with the Protheans, it replied. Its voice was methodical as it spoke. We call these beings the old machines. It was something to be filed away for later notice. What are these heretics? Geth build our own future. The heretics asked the old machines to give them the future. They are no longer a part of us. We were studying the old machine's hardware to protect our future. With Aquarian, the shinobi mentally added. That was something he would get back to. So you consider the Reapers a threat too? Yes. You're both machines. The Geth continued to look at him. If it was an organic, he had no doubt that it would be giving him a look full of sarcasm. We are different from them. Outside their plans. It clicked inside his head. You're not with the Reapers. We oppose the old machines. We oppose the heretics. It looked him up and down, like it was examining him. Uzumaki Sennin opposes the old machines. Uzumaki Sennin opposes the heretics. Cooperation furthers mutual goals. For a moment, Naruto didn't understand what the machine was saying. But when he did, he had a hard time believing it. Wait, are you really asking to join me and my team? Yes. It seems honest enough, Matatabi offered. It's a machine, Sun retorted. How the hell can it seem honest? It came with Tali, Gyuki reminded Naruto. I don't think she's going to be happy if you toss it out the airlock. Komiai nodded in agreement. If she's going to stay, it's probably going to be staying too. There was truth in that statement. But even if it was true, it didn't mean that Naruto wasn't going to lower the shield. If you're going to be on my team, you're going to have to tell me your name, he told the Geth. What is it? Jinchuriki, it answered instantly. He scowled, and his eyes hardened. That's not funny. We do not know how the name is humorous. That statement just made him angry. You think that you have a right to that name? He demanded. There are currently 1,183 programs active within this platform. When this explanation was given, we were told that it sounds like someone hosting entities within ourselves. Thus, we were labeled Jinchuriki. Who labeled you? You did, Uzumaki Sennin. He went completely still. It struck him like a thunderbolt, and all he could think was, I'm glad that EDI blocked the cameras. He worked his way out of his stupor and looked hard at the Geth. I named you, he repeated. Yes. He didn't ask how that was possible because he knew that they would get to it in due time. For now, there were other questions that needed to be asked. Did we work together during the past 2 years? Yes. Did we work together before or after Tali came on board? That was a crucial question. He had seen how Tali seemed to be worried about the Geth. It was the worry of a friend over another. After. Why did we work together? We were forced to come out of observation to protect you. When it was done, you refused to let us disappear. Oh, so it's my fault now? I don't think that was the point he was trying to make here, Gaki, Kurama told him. He knew that. He was just distracting himself from the questions that would come next. What do you mean by observation? He asked the Geth. Geth found and tracked a meteor with abnormal readings 2 years. Discovery of origins was made only possible after researching human history and deducing that it was you. When Geth learned that Akatsuki was only watching and attempting to force to land, a concrescence was made to ensure that you would not fall into their grasp. Realization struck him almost painfully so. It was the Geth who made the meteor fall onto Thesha. Yes, the Geth said, like it was nothing important. When we learned of your awakening, it was decided to send a platform to observe. He looked at the machine. In other words, he said? Yes. Never would have expected that kind of thing from a Geth, Saiken remarked. Have we expected anything from a Geth that wasn't being shot at? Koko asked the slug. Not really. There you have it. Why would you observe me? Naruto asked. It didn't make any sense to him. They might have sent him hurtling towards Thesha to protect him from the Akatsuki. But they didn't have to go any further than that. But they had. Geth wished to learn more about chakra use. It was thought that as you were freshly revived, you would not be so inclined to use modern technology and rely on your skills. That's about half right, Kurama commented. His Jinchuriki adapted somewhat to the technology, but only the small stuff. If it was anything big or complicated, it was probably liable to melt Naruto's brain. The blonde might try to protest the fact, but they both knew it to be true. Also, the Geth said again, only to pause. Naruto looked at it questioningly. Not only was he listening to a Geth talking for the first time, he was also listening to it pause. He didn't think that a Geth could pause. Yes? Geth are responsible for your revival. Also our responsibility to keep watch over you. Okay, I don't think none of us expected that response, Isabu declared. Shikaka nodded. This is just getting weirder by the second. Just how long were you watching me? Naruto asked the Geth. We observed you from the time you first landed on the Citadel. They've been watching me for that long? This Geth was more determined than a hardcore stalker. A thought came to him, something that he hadn't thought about it for the longest time. It was you who helped us on Pharaohs, wasn't it? When they were helping Zhu's hopes set up their defenses and get more supplies, they found that the majority of their problems in succeeding had already been taken care for them. They had wondered who it was that helped them, even joked that it could have been Saren. If the Geth was organic, it would have nodded in agreement. But instead, it only said yes. His eyes hardened again. You're the one who shot Al. They had found the old cowboy dead with a single shot through the heart, which he had been told had entered from the back and came from a sniper's rifle. Yes. We considered it to be a kindness. Anger started to boil up in his blood. How is shooting someone in the back considered a kindness to you? We found Al Kalba against Saren. We calculated the risk of Saren winning the fight to be greater than Al Kalba winning. If Saren won, the odds that he would take the wounded Al Kalba to be indoctrinated were very high. It was a risk we would not allow to happen. So we eliminated Al Kalba. The way it talked about the events, with that cold precision and logical attitude, it made Naruto see where it was coming from. For a logical mind, it was the right thing to do in the moment, and it did the job with no hesitation. But for the one with the heart, it was wrong, so wrong. If that's supposed to convince me that what you did was the right thing, he told the Geth, you missed the mark. We did not tell you to convince you, it replied. We told you because it is the honest truth of what happened. You're not making your case to join my team any better. From what he was hearing, he should just leave the machine in here. If there are doubts, speak to creator Talizora. That was an excellent idea and one he would go take care of after this. I plan to, but right now my concern is you. The Geth stared at him for a long moment, and then reached inside of himself. It was a little disturbing to watch his hand disappear into his own innards. What are you doing? Providing proof, it replied. The hand came back out, holding an OSD. With swift movements, it inserted the OSD under its main light and turned to the wall. Naruto turned his attention to the wall. A video appeared in the light, and he saw himself in it. He wasn't surprised by the fact he was there. But he was taken off guard by the fact that he looked like he had just gotten out of a fight, and not on the winning side either. Okay, that smarts, his video self grumbled as he pressed lightly around his blackened eye. This just might be worse than the time I had to stop Tali and Jinchuriki from fighting. I already apologized for that, Naruto. Tali's voice called out from the side. He looked at where it came from. And I'm going to keep reminding you about it until you've come to terms with Jinchuriki. He turned his attention back to the video. Sorry about that. That was just something that happened back when we first had Jinchuriki on board. I'm sure that if you're watching this, you found him again and you're having doubts about his intentions. Don't worry. I was careful at the start of things too. But Jinchuriki proved to be on our side. He's saved our asses a lot of times since he's joined and I trust him. You can do the same. If you're not sure, go find Tali and talk about what the three of us have been through together. Hopefully they will still be able to work together once things happen. What did I mean by that? Naruto asked as the video went dark. Did he somehow know what was going to happen to himself? No, that couldn't be it. He remembered the Shadow Broker's video. K-Lang had gotten him from behind. There was no way that he could have known that was going to happen. Naruto, I'm just going to come out and say it, Kurama said to him. But this web you seem to have made just gets more and more complicated and confusing each time you find something new. Tell me something that I don't know, he replied. But it was the truth all the same. Just what the hell was he doing? Does this prove our trustworthiness? The Geth asked, turning to face him and taking out the OSD. It put the thing back inside itself. He looked at the machine for a long moment, considering what had been said about it. Just one more question, he finally replied. Where did you get that sleeve on your arm? It looked down at the arm and the sleeve. It almost looked like it was seeing it for the first time. It looked back at him and said, You gave it to us before disappearing. You said that it was a token of trust. We did not understand then. Do you know? Not enough data. What does that mean? Not enough data. Kurama intervened then. You're not going to get anything else out of him, Gaki. Don't bother trying. Besides, you said you only had one more question for him. By my count, that was 3. Now is not the time for you to be a smartass, furball, he told the Kyuubi. EDI, he said aloud, bring the shield down. The thin blue layer between organic and machine vanished, and yet, either moved. I don't trust you fully, not yet. But I am willing to put faith on previous trust. Don't freak anyone out while you're here. Is this an offer of alliance? If you want to call it that. We accept. We are Jinchuriki, a terminal of the Geth. We will integrate into Normandy. It held its hand in a fist, waiting for a response. Naruto looked at the hand for a long, suspicious moment. He knew what the Geth was offering him, but was still surprised at seeing it. Did he get that from me? Are you going to accept it? Matatabi asked him. He thought about it. It probably would have been weird to bump fists with a Geth. Some would probably even wonder if he was indoctrinated for just doing it. But this was something that he had probably taught the Geth himself. So he responded by bumping the fist with his own. Welcome aboard. The first words he said when he walked into engineering were everyone except Tali out, now. Tali didn't look that surprised to see him as everyone else tried to leave without causing a mass scramble for the door. Do you need something, Commander? She asked him. We need to talk, he told her. About what? She asked, making it sound innocently curious. But he wasn't fooled nor was he amused. About the Geth I currently have on this ship. The one you had us bring back on board. Oh, you're talking about Jinchuriki. It was still weird to hear something other than him to be called that. He had been a Jinchuriki his entire life, even when he didn't know what it meant. It was something he had lived when it was used against him, and then used to respect him. And now he had heard a Geth call itself that same thing. What was worse than that was the fact that apparently, he had given it the name. Yeah, him, he said to the Quarian. She didn't seem to be put off by his attitude. What do you want to know about him, Commander? Why do you call it him? The Geth had always been called it. Hearing be called a gender was a little jarring. But Tali surprised him with her answer. That was something you did. You said you were sick and tired of calling Jinchuriki in it. He froze with his mouth half open to protest. He did that because it was something that he probably would have done. Move past it, he told himself. How did we get entangled with a Geth of all things? We? She repeated, again making it sound innocently curious. He still wasn't fooled. Don't start that, Tali. I already know that you were involved with me when I went missing. Now I want to know what the hell we did to get a Geth involved with us. She looked past him like she was checking to make sure that they were indeed alone. It was pointless, but he allowed her to do it if it kept the conversation going forward. We were on a planet that used to be a Quarian colony, she began, her voice becoming serious, trying to find evidence that supported your theory. That other races besides humans had chakra? She was a little surprised but nodded. Yes. You thought that the Quarians were one of those races. But when we got to the planet, we were quickly ambushed by the Geth. We were pinned down with sharpshooters all around us. You tried multiple times to use your chakra, but they kept shooting every time you popped up. Jinchuriki brought himself out of hiding to take out the sharpshooters. He saved us. When it was over, he tried to leave, but you refused to let him go. And I take it that you had a problem with it? He asked with a knowing look. She nodded, somehow being able to convey her embarrassment past her mask. Yes, I did. If you hadn't knocked the gun out of my hands that day, I might have shot him. I was suspicious of him for the longest time. I kept trying to provoke a fight with him, and we nearly came to blows each time. That's probably why I was shot in the leg, Naruto thought to himself. He was almost tempted to look down at his leg to see if there was a scar. But since it was currently covered by pants, what would be the point? What changed? At first, things came to a head when we found data that was valuable to the flotilla. Jinchuriki had scanned it too and was going to send it to the Geth. I found out and pulled a gun on him. You had to break it up and calm us both down. You made us both see reason. I still didn't trust Jinchuriki that well, but I was willing to lean on your trust to work with him. Her eyes flickered sadly. Then came the fleet. The migrant fleet? He asked. She nodded. Yes. They called me back, accusing me of being a traitor. You both went with me, causing quite a stir with the Admiralty Board. But you defended me before them, and he saved my life when we went to collect evidence. He frowned in concern. What kind of evidence were we collecting that required him to save your life? She waved it off. It's a long story and it's not important right now. Just know that you were able to keep me from not being exiled from the fleet and Jinchuriki, and I were able to trust each other fully. Even after you left, we still worked together. Then why didn't I see him on Freedom's Progress? He silently asked. It was probably because she was there with Quarians. Or maybe it was because they didn't need to work together all the time. So you trust him? With my life, she answered with complete surety. He believed her. All right, he can stay, he finally decided. I'll see if I can find that trust one supposedly had for him again. Trust me, Commander, Tali told him. It wasn't supposedly. He might have trusted her on that. But they were also talking about a time that he had no memory of and only knew through OSTs. And those things had shown him that he had been on the run from both the Akatsuki and the tribe, while also hunting for the actual truth of the past, taking on a Drell for a partner and helping out his son in the process, hiring a good thief to aid him and make sure that his team was assembled the way he wanted it, and helping a Krogan scientist create a Krogan that was able to wield chakra so he could lead his own people in using at some point in the future. The sad thing was that all of these, and the ones he probably wasn't aware of yet, were about par for the course for him. Codex Entry, Humanity and the Systems Alliance. The Great Jungle. Located in Earth's southern hemisphere, neath the equator, the Great Jungle is a continent that is covered in flora that generally associated with rainforests and jungles, hence the name. The Great Jungle is home to many tribes, the numbers of which have risen and fallen constantly before the human alliance landed on their shores a century after the discovery of the mountain. Ironically, It was such an event that united the tribes against whom they saw as invaders. See the local war. When the dust had settled from 3 years of fighting, half of the tribes had been killed, with the survivors either hunted down and killed or folded into different tribes. When the tribes finally surrendered to the commander of the alliance forces, Shiro Inuzuka, they were not wiped as they thought might happen. Instead, Shiro raised the man who personally surrendered to him, the speaker to the gods, brought him back to his feet and said, "We only came in peace. None of this bloodshed was needed." The speaker replied infamously with, "Next time, don't sail in so fast." But still, peace was made and the Great Jungle was welcomed into the alliance. Today, the government of the Great Jungle is a complex thing. Technically, all tribes operate in a democracy, their chiefs all acting as a part of a council. However, the power and strength of a particular tribe is dependent on its chief's ability to maintain several relationships with other tribes at the same time. This causes the positions of power to constantly move around when a new chief takes his place on the council, which led to the creation of the jungle phrase, "The son is not the father." In spite of the dangers that would normally come with living in jungle and what can be produced from it, the tribes have not harvested or deforested the jungle. Instead, they have chosen to live beside and within it. Because of this choice, they are known as one of the leading environmentalists in the galaxy. The capital city of Rio de la Vida, which translates into River of Life but also just known as Rio, has been consistently called one of the most beautiful cities in the galaxy. While the city has been established on both sides of the river, they have also built into the trees themselves, using bridges to connect several platforms. What surprises most newcomers to the Great Jungle is that they are able to find and use technology while there. When asked this question, the speaker to the gods Miguel Iglesias famously answered, "We're eco-friendly. We're not savages."